Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's What's New session for Probe, Caseware, the financials, and IDEA, as well as Audit International a bit later in the session. Let's start with the agenda for Probe for today. So what we'll do is today we're going to look at Probe first, for the first hour. Then we'll go over into Caseware Working Papers, where Mo will present what's new in Working Papers, as well as the film template guide. We'll come back to me, where I will show you what has changed in the new version of IDEA. Then we'll go to Ninko, who will show you what's new in financials, and then back to me for all of the Audit International clients to show you what is new in Audit International. Okay, so looking at the agenda for Probe specifically, we'll start with ISQM2 and ISO 220 compliance and just have a look at what has changed in that area from a compliance perspective. And then we'll go through what's new in terms of features, fixes and hot fixes, as well as content. So ISO 220 and ISQM2 are two brand new standards that has been released and is applicable from the 15th of December. Now, for ISO 220, it really does focus on the engagement partner and their involvement in the engagement team. It does look like we've got a few people with sound issues. Let's just quickly see if we can get that sorted. I do want to prompt you that if you have the web version, rather download the actual client version onto the machine. That will help, but we'll just quickly do a sound check on this side and then we can go. Okay, let's try this again. I think we might have it sorted now. So let's see if it is going a bit better now. So when we're looking at ISO 220, it mainly is around the quality management of the financial statements and how is partners involved in the engagement. And then when we look at ISQM2, it is on the engaging of quality reviews and how those quality reviews are being performed. So with that, let's go and have a look at what changed in Probe because of these changes in compliance, as well as some of the other areas. Okay, so the first biggest change that we have introduced is the engagement history. So we've always had engagement history in the file, but what we have now done is we have enabled these documents for you on your file. So there's 6 new or 5 new documents in the engagement history under finalization, and these relates to adjusting journal entries, file access, document creation, document deletion, as well as a summary of all the history events that is within the file. So you can see all of those within the file already. And we've added them for you by default, so you don't have to go and add them. It is important to note that these events have always been recorded. The documentation of that was just not done, and we didn't have the documents ready. Then looking at Caseview roles and firm policies, we'll look at those two together. So in the Probe firm settings, we've always had Caseview roles, and we allowed certain staff to do certain things within Caseview based on the level that they were on. And what we have done now is we have added another level For staff members that can set firm policies, we previously had the minimum staff level that can modify work programs. Now we have firm policies as well. And there we've given ourselves the rights to level 9. So that's the highest you can go. Some of you will remember that we had up to 10, but it's actually from 0 to 9. And we can see that we have a level 9 there. So I'm currently logged in as first name, surname, and I'm on case level 9. So that means I can now set firm policies because I am on this level. So that level should be allocated to your firm champions or your firm authors, and only they should have those case view levels. Otherwise, everyone will be able to add firm policies. So why did we do this? We want to recognize that as part of ISQM 1 and 2, you might have specific firm policies that you want engagement partners to look at when they're looking at the file, when they're reviewing. So in the documents that relate to the engagement quality reviews, as well as the ISO 220 engagement partner involvement, then you can go and add firm policies to those documents. So what does it look like? If I open document 1230, which is our planning memorandum, I'll go all the way to the bottom. There is firm mandatory based on events and conditions that may be present. So this is now available for me. I can add a new procedure there. I can also right click, I can insert the row, and you can then choose which one of these are mandatory. So if we tick them and we add the procedures here, once we release the firm template and someone on a lower level logs in, they will not be able to make changes to these firm policies. So that gives you a way that you can then add policies and procedures that is not editable by users in these documents. Okay, then while we are in this spot, you'll also see that we have changed the sign-off buttons and how they work within Probe. So previously you had a button here, anyone can click on the button and they can then sign off as an engagement partner. But what we have done now is you need to go and select the person that is the engagement partner. And what we have done is only that person will be able to sign off. So if, as an example, I select myself, Christian Stein, you'll see that I don't have a sign off. The reason for that is because I am logged in as first name, last name. So if I go to first name, last name or surname, then the button is available for me to sign off. So that then signs off with my signature as well as the date. Now this is important because in all of the declarations, that is now how it is going to work. So a staff member can't anymore sign off as someone else in any one of the declarations or within any one of the Probe documents. We will look at the level that you are on, and we will also look at how you are logged in, and only that person will be able to sign off for that specific document. So that was another change that we have made, and you can see if I remove the sign off, I can't then change the person. I can then go back, select the person that needs to log in, and then I can go from there. Okay, then looking at the partner and the engagement quality reviewer sign-off automation. So going back to the firm settings, we want to also recognize that the partner's involvement will be throughout the engagement. And we wanted to give the partners, as well as the EQ reviewers, the ability to automate some of this work. So if we have a look as an example, in the firm settings, we can choose how we want to manage this within the Probe engagement. So the partner sign-off reference automation currently is set as automated, and that's the default we will release with, as well as the sign-off role is currently number 4. And then the engagement quality reviewer, we have not automated that, but you could, if your EQRs or within the firm and they do electronic reviews, You can have that automated as well, and then it will work the same as the partner. And then you allocate a role number for them. So that's which role within the Caseware Document Manager do they sign off as. So this is the defaults that we're shipping with. And what does this then mean for the engagement partner? If I go back to, as an example, the planning memorandum, you will see that we are pulling in the references of where certain work are being performed. So already we have that automated, and that is because the partner needs to sign this off. But what we have then done, and the part that we have automated, so if I go back into my document manager as an example for 1222, which is a new document, which we'll get to, but I go and I sign off as rule 4. What is going to happen in 1230? It is then going to indicate to me that I have already reviewed the document and I have signed it off. So then the partner can get an overview of what they have already done, where were they involved, and they can then just say, yes, they have reviewed it and they are satisfied within that document. If we selected manual, they would not be able to do that, and it will not pull through. You'll manually document the work that you have performed. So that's the difference between automated and then manual. And if we have done work somewhere else, so where we already know where the work is documented from the standards, there we have already pre-referenced the work for you. Where we don't know, where it's up to your discretion, or you need other working papers, the partner then needs to add a reference. But what you'll see is if I add a reference to a document that is already in the file and is signed off, it will pull through automatically, and the partner can then conclude their. Okay, so that is the partner and EQ reviewer sign-off automation. Then quickly dealing with the hot fixes we had for last year and some of the fixes we've introduced. So you don't have to worry, but all of the items we previously fixed within the hot fixes was already included in this release. So we don't expect you to run any hot fixes on this release. And we really looked at all of the hot fixes we released during last year and this year to incorporate all of them into all of the sections. Now, let's go and look at some of the content we've added in a bit more detail. So we looked at the features, now we're looking at the content. So ISO 220, we quickly touched on, then there's ISQM2, ISO 315. So you'll say to me, but ISO 315 was last year, we 100% agree. But what we've done is we've gone to the market and we have done some queries into where we can improve, how we can improve. Then we also looked at the support calls on areas that you guys are struggling maybe on, and we've added either procedures or content or some warnings and automation there, and we'll go through those. Then we've updated our going concern conclusion and expanded that a bit. We've updated all of the procedures for IAS1, and Ninka will go through about what IAS1 is a bit more in detail. We've also split supplementary and other unaudited information, and then the work programs have quite a significant amount of changes. So let's look at ISO 220. So I briefly mentioned the involvement of the engagement partner throughout the audit. It also clearly defines the definition of what the engagement team is, and it brings some people into who forms part of the engagement team. Then we also have the firm's policies and procedures can there be different. It's very important that they bring into the standard professional skepticism, and then we need to consider our full suite of resources as an engagement partner that is needed, not just human, but also technological, as well as intellectual resources that we might need into the engagement. And then we also, as part of the engagement team, they have to have collectively the appropriate competence and capabilities, as well as sufficient time. So that's something that the audit or engagement partner needs to sign off on. And if one of those areas are not there, then we need to go and investigate as the partner and get some of those resources. So because of that, what we have done is we've amended document 1230 with the planning memorandum, as well as O200, the partner sign-off document. And we've brought in some questions and automations, as you saw, into those documents. We've also taken out the declarations. So previously the declaration was in there, but we've taken that out. And then we've added 3 new documents relating to ISO 220. The first one is 1222, the use of resources. The next one is 1226, the use of another practitioner. So that's when you are doing an inventory count and maybe you send someone from another practice, even if it's within the same network, to go and do that inventory count, then you're using another practitioner and they form part of the team. And then O205, the engagement team declaration. So previously we had one declaration just in planning. Now we have a planning declaration and we have a finalization declaration. Okay, so let's look at 1222. So 1222, the use of resources, assist your engagement team to evaluate whether the resources they have are sufficient and appropriate to perform the engagement. So that's something the partner needs to conclude on. And that will then enable the engagement partner to conclude collectively on the team whether they have the capabilities, competence, and time. So let's have a look at 1222, the use of resources document. And here we can see all of the, first of all, the firm's personnel. That's where we then need to do the declaration. So there we can do the declaration. I'll do myself and I'll do the first and surname. You can see I can't sign off as myself, but I can sign off as first and surname because that's the person who I'm currently logged in. So that's one of those sign-off changes. Then looking at technological resources, that's included there. The intellectual resources, that is included there. Now, I haven't answered yet that I will be using an external party or that we will be doing an EQR within the other probe planning documents. So let's go to document 1220 and then see how that actually has an impact on this document. So 1220 is my audit plan and strategy. And we can then have a look at when we are actually using another resource and another practitioner, how that has an impact. But before I go in and answer that specific question and place reliance work on another practitioner, I just want to move on to the actual document 1226 so that you can see what the flow looks like. So 1226, provide information to the individuals from another practitioner and the firm who will then perform the audit procedures, as well as request information from them to do the audit, as well as finalize the plan of the engagement. So if we go back to 1226, what we will see today is that it is actually a template notice. So it looks like the document is not working. So if we're looking at the template notice, it's telling us that it's a master template and we need to create a new version of the document. Why is it like that? It's because we recognize that you might have multiple other practitioners that you engage with, and you want to send one for each one, as well as complete one for each of the other practitioners that you use. So what I'm going to do is I'll click on OK. It says 12, the next one in the list. I can do 1227. And I'll do other practitioner 1. And where do I want to save it? I'll just put it in the audit planning folder. Okay, so it's telling me that one is already there. So let's do 1228. And then a new document has been created from the template. So now a new document has been added to my document manager. There we have 1228. And if I open document 1228 for the other practitioner, you'll see another yellow warning. So you can then see within the engagement how we have tried to help you in completing these documents. So it's currently telling us you created a copy of 1226, but you've actually said that you're not using another practitioner. So go back to 1220 if you are using another practitioner and then indicate as such. So we can go to 1220 and we'll say, are we placing work performed by another practitioner? Yes. And if we then say yes, within the sections, we then also need to indicate which sections we will then perform or other practitioners will perform work for. So then if we go back to 1228, the document is now available for us to complete and then print and send to the other practitioner. So there they can do their declarations. So we don't expect you to give them access to the file, but you're most likely going to send it for them into PDF. They will complete it and then send it back. You can add more lines if there's more staff involved. And then important to note, we have also included the finalization section. So you can tell them for the planning pieces, we need that by, for example, Friday. And then for the finalization, maybe we need that a week later when we are done with the audit and they need to send that back. So we've grouped both of them together so that you only ever send one out and then they can send the two back. So it's not an email back and forth when we get to that point. And then what we've also done in document 0205, 0205 is then your finalization declaration, which the team will complete. You can see it's already pulling through the staff members as I've completed them in planning. And I can then sign off as that person again. And then we've also brought in the question to say, you have indicated that another practitioner will be used, that you actually get their finalization back. So just another prompt for you to see that you actually have a template out there and you've sent it out and you just need to get the other engagement partner or other engagement team to then sign. So that was 0205. So 0205, I quickly showed you already. It's where the firm personnel signed and the engagement team signed the declaration to confirm that during the engagement, they have complied with the ethical requirements, didn't identify any breaches, and remained completely independent. And then also for the individuals from another firms, and then as I showed you from 1220, you need to make sure that you indicate as such. Okay, now moving on to the ISQM2 changes. So we always had document 0280, the engagement quality review checklist. This is now being changed so that your engagement quality review for execution and finalization. And then we've added two new documents, document 1240 and 1080, both of them engagement quality review documents for planning. The 1241 is for audit and the 1081 is for review. So because ISQM2 is applicable both to audits and reviews, we've created those documents for you. So let's go and have a look at 1240. So that's your EQR for planning. So those includes questions relating to those procedures and EQR are expected to perform at the planning stage. And that means reading all of the firm's system of quality management policies and procedures, concluding that they are allowed to act as an EQR, obtaining an understanding of the engagement as well as the entity and any remedial action processes, discussions with the engagement partners and team members if it's relevant, as well as the review of the audit evidence relating to any significant judgments. So let's go and open document 1240 so that we can have a look at what that document then looks like. So again, we get a warning to say that actually in document 1020, you have not indicated that you will be using an EQR. So we need to go into document 1020, your engagement evaluation, and actually go and indicate that an EQR will be required for this engagement. Now, important to note, if you then want to switch on the automation, you'll also go into the firm settings and switch on the automation for them. But in addition, because not every engagement requires an EQR, we haven't added the roles already into the engagement file. You would then add another role for them to sign off within the document manager, if that is then applicable, and they will be reviewing live on the engagement file. If they're not, then you actually don't have to do that. So let's go down to the EQR question. So is this engagement subject to an EQR? If we say yes, it will then also prompt you. So there we say, click here to add additional roles when the EQR and assistants are required to sign off on relevant documentation, as well as allow the electronic sign-off. So the first one will take you to the Caseware role sets. And there, if we wanted to, we can say, actually, there's a fifth role, and we will make that the EQR. And we could also go ahead and switch on the automation for them if we wanted to from the firm settings. So there is the EQR sign-off reference automation. We can make that automatic. Before I do that, let me show you document 1240 first. So there, are they planning to use assistance? If we say yes, then we need to document how those assistants are then also qualified. There they sign off the declaration, and then here we have the procedures. Currently, because it is manual, they'll go and add the references to where they have done the work. If I go, however, and I go back to the firm settings and I make that automated and go to 1240, now it will then be it will then pull in the references. So we have previously done 1222 and we signed off that one. But you remember that I signed that one off as the engagement partner. But now what we have added is we've added a fifth role, and I can now sign that off as the EQR. The moment I do that, then there's my automation, and it's pulling through the reference from an EQR's perspective and not from a partner's perspective. Okay, so that is document 1240 for your EQRs in planning. Then looking at some of the ISO 315 changes we've made. So the first one that came up was the rebuttal of presumed fraud risks, especially for revenue. And if I then open document 1160, we've brought in a way for you to now rebut automatically those risks in 1160. So there's revenue. We have pre-created the 3 revenue streams for you. At least 3, your firm could have more, they could have less. If they do have less, edit the risk and document it in the implication to say that actually they don't have a third or a second revenue stream, they only have one. But that just shows to the person reviewing the document that you've actually considered the various revenue streams. If you find that actually for the whole revenue, there is no presumed risk, you could go ahead and say, do you conclude that the presumed fraud risk related to revenue recognition is not applicable in the circumstances of this engagement? If you then say yes, what we will do is we will delete those risks from the file, and you can then document the reason for the rebuttal of the presumed fraud risk related to revenue here. Now, remember, in terms of ISO 315, that will then also, so it's completely removing the risks, and you will then not have any identified risks. So in 1220, you will then see that, or in 1150, you'll see that we don't prompt you to document anything around the risks or anything around controls and significant clauses of transactions there. In 1220, you will not have a risk. And you then, in this case, it's a material section, so we'll just prompt you to select at least one assertion. So that's how you will rebut the full revenue fraud risks related to the engagement. If there is only 1 or 2 that is not relevant, then you'll do it within the risks. Remember that you can also not manually delete the risks. If you went right-click, edit, or delete the risk, it will not delete. We will bring them back from a compliance perspective, and this is the process that you would then need to follow. Okay, then looking at the type of risk assessment procedures performed. So in document 1051, as one example, we have our risk assessment procedures, and we previously listed them for each section. Now what we have done is we have given you the option in the firm settings. So some of you said for smaller engagements, you actually don't have to do it. For larger engagements, you would want to do it. So in firm settings, the risk assessment procedures, we give you the option. You want to elect per audit engagement. So you allow the firm or the team to choose whether they want to do it per audit engagement, or you can say it's not required to do it per clause of transaction, or it is required for all audit engagements. So what does this actually do? If we follow the elected per audit engagement, then what we will do is, where do we elect? In document 1050, we will elect, and you can choose the selection. So do we plan to record the type of risk assessment procedures performed for each clause of transaction, account balance, or disclosure separately? And the users can say yes or no. If we say no, in document 1051, then it will look like this. So there will be one risk assessment procedure section, and you will document overall for all of the types and volumes of transactions. So there's no separate risk assessments. If we go back into 1050 and we say, yes, we actually want to do it separate, then we take the one at the top away and we bring it into each section. So you can say for PPE, these are the ones I performed. For investment property, I maybe did inspections, and for inventories, I did inquiries. So that's then how you would document the risk assessment. So back to the firm settings, when we select not required, it's the same as answering no in 1050. So you'll have one. If you say required for all, it will then be for all of them, the types of clauses of transaction separately. Okay, then looking at the preliminary analytical review, we got some feedback there as well, based on 1051 as well as 1052. So here we brought into 1051 your changes, and depending on where your firm are on analytical procedures, you have a choice of what you can do. So if I go into the firm settings, and we have an option now to say analytical procedures, do we want to develop expectations on document 1052 instead of performing simple comparisons of information on 1051? So if your firm interprets the standards that you need to develop an expectation for planning analytical procedures, you can then say, yes, we want to use 1052, develop our expectations there. If you say no, it is not required to develop expectations, you can actually just do the analytical review in 1051. So we've again allowed you to elect per audit engagement. So if I go to 1050, their question number 7, do we plan to use 1052 to perform analytical procedures? So I'll first do the no option. We don't want to use 1052. If I go into 1051, you'll see I can add my comments and I can do the simple comparisons here. And when I open document 1052, it's giving us a warning to say that we indicated either in the firm settings or in 1050 that we will not be using 1052. If I go back to 1050 and I select yes, so now we are using 1052. If I then go to 1052, you would then be expected to do your expectations, document your expectations, and then when you're done, you can put in the comment. So you can see there's already a comment pulling through. This comment is pulling through already from 1051. So we've linked the two. So when you document something here, it will also be in 1051. But now, because we said the source from where we input is different, now we are inputting in 1052. when I go back to 1051, you'll see that you can't change the comments here. You have to go to 1052 and then we'll automate it for you into 1051. So if you choose to do it on 1052, you do everything on 1052 and we'll give you the context in 1051. Otherwise, if you choose to do it in 1051, we will switch off 1052 and we'll allow you to just do it in 1051. Okay. Then looking at procedures required by the audit standards. So previously, we've linked the procedures to the assertions, and with the probe audit methodology, all the procedures always showed, so we didn't skip and hide based on assertions for the work programs. But with the bringing in of the skip and hide based on the assertions as well as the traps, we got some feedback there that you don't want those procedures to be linked to any assertions, because that could give you the sense that you've performed procedures on a certain section for a certain assertion and that you've gained audit evidence, but actually you didn't gain any assurance. So if I, for example, open the work program, because you might ask what procedures are these that we are referring now. If we open a work program and I jump to sampling, so I've already switched on sampling. Previously, these assertions were activated so that it doesn't matter which assertion you select you wanted to do, we would show you the procedures. What we've done now, we've removed all of the assertions and we've added the ISA references in. So whenever you see a procedure with an ISA reference, they will not have any assertion, and they will already show in the work program always, doesn't matter which assertion you choose. But when we then conclude, we won't maybe in error conclude that we gained evidence on these procedures because they are ISA procedures that actually don't provide any audit evidence. So these just tell you how you need to execute, as an example, the sample or the sample on the section. Okay, then looking at, as an example, the laws, compliance with laws and regulations procedures, general ones. So this was a similar experience because the transactions are based on a law or a regulation. We always want those transactions or procedures to actually show. So what we have then done is we have brought in a new document new document in the general work program section. And if I quickly jump to first the general working papers, there's a new work program called the Laws and Regulations Work Program. So those are, and please don't confuse that with our previous PPE work program 2010. That is now the new Laws and Regulations Work Program. So if in 1121 Laws and Regulations, we now select the acts that is applicable, and then we go, and some of them could be general. Those are dealt with within the 2010 work program, and some of them are dealt with within a specific work program. So if we say that as an example, and that is specific to a certain section, we've given you some guidance here to say, go to 1220, and we also gave you a red warning to say, go to 1220 and select, based on your audit plan and strategy, which sections this law relates to, and where do you need to do additional procedures for this specific law or regulation. So if I go to 1220, the audit plan and strategy, if we have indicated any laws and regulations that are having a direct effect on the financial statements, those are ISA 250.14 procedures, and we need to actually gain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence that the firm have or the entity have complied with those laws. So an audit consideration is yes for property, plant and equipment. This law is actually applicable, And then automatically we switch on your required procedures for laws and regulations as well. So if I go back to my property, plant and equipment section 305.10 and just look at laws and regulations, you'll see we've added a new procedure for you to just remind you. You did indicate that there are some laws and regulations identified for this section, and you need to go and add new procedures. So you will insert and then you will add new procedures dealing with that specific laws and regulations. Now for that, we already have some procedures included, the most common ones. It's not in every section and it's not everywhere. So that is why you need to review those as well. But if I quickly go through the additions as an example, and we look at where did we deal with that, there will be an ISA 240 or 250.14 reference. So these procedures as well, we haven't linked them to any assertions. You can see that I've got no assertions linked. So it doesn't matter whether you selected AVA, EO, completeness, these procedures will always show, and we then tell you why it always shows. It's because it is a laws or regulations procedure. And you can then go and always execute on those. Otherwise, previously it might have hidden if it was linked to a specific assertion. And then lastly, the Companies Act of South Africa. We've added the Companies Act procedures in document 1810, so the financial statement preparation work program. So where the Companies Act procedures directly relates to a section, we've added those procedures in the specific sections and the financial statement areas, and they will be a 240.14 procedure. But where they are a general procedure, we have added them to the financial statements preparation work program. So there we have as an example, confirm that the financial statements were prepared within 6 months after the end of its financial year, and we've given you the Companies Act reference. So these will be available for you if you selected it as a company and the entity is in South Africa. Okay, so that was the ISA 315 changes that we've made from last year to this year with some improvements there. Then looking at 0220, the going concern conclusion. So previously, when we asked you, did you, and you responded that you did not obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence regarding management use of going concern basis for accounting, and management is unwilling to extend its assessment. So management did do an initial assessment, but we don't think it was sufficient to provide audit evidence that is appropriate. Then you could answer just once. But now what we have done is we gave you two options. So the first one is you can then indicate what that means for us. Is it material but not pervasive? That means it's a qualified opinion because of the going concern conclusion. Or is it material and pervasive, and that means it is a disclaimer of opinion. So depending on what you answer there, we'll then automate that for you into 0250. Then for IAS 1, our financial statements preparation work program has been updated, as well as all of the presentation and disclosure work procedures within the work program. So the amendments to IAS 1 that require to disclose material accounting policy information rather than significant, and we've updated that then accordingly. Then looking at supplementary or other unaudited information. So previously we didn't deal with supplementary and other unaudited information separately. It was one question. We have now separated those questions in document 1050, and we've given you then separate procedures for supplementary procedures, supplementary disclosures or information in document 1810, as well as other information in document 1810, and the procedures you need to do are different. And then also in the consideration of the audit report, based on the work that you have done, you have two separate questions you need to answer. Then for the work programs. So for the work programs, we have made quite a significant amount of changes there as well within various work programs, and I'm not going to go through all of them. But what we have done is we've included new procedures where we got feedback that you want more procedures. We edited some of the assertion allocations on the procedures with last year. The focus so much on assertions, we got feedback there. So we've edited our assertion allocation. We've updated some of the wording of the procedures to make it more clear. And we've also updated our extended test of details as well as sampling to make sure that the procedure numbering as well as the extended step references are showing. Then also in terms of visibility conditions, so when is a procedure showed? Just a reminder that some of the procedures show and hide based on whether you select small or large. And then also the legal form of the entity. So is it a company or not? And then the country that you select. Also the accounting framework. So if you do select that it is an IFRS or SME, those procedures will change. Or if it's just a general one, then we won't show you the IFRS or SME ones. Then entity-specific selection. So as you're answering procedures in 1050, we will then also show and hide procedures, and that then has an impact in 1051. So we've updated some of those visibility conditions across all of the work programs. And then we also looked at various sections and the TRABs. And for those of you who don't remember what TRABs are, it's the transactions relating to account balances. So a TRAB, as an example for PPE, would be an addition, a disposal, depreciation, and those are then in cost of sales or other expenses depending on where the disclosure is made for PPE and where it's used. So we've included those TRABs and we expanded on some of the TRABs as well and the procedures in there. Then before I look at the 2024 changes, let's see if there are any questions. Okay, so we have a question around 1240. Also now be done for independent reviews, and will it open a form in section 10? So let's quickly go and have a look at 1240. So 1240 is our engagement quality review for planning. Now, this specific document will not be applicable to reviews, document 1240. So we've added a different one, document 1080, that will then be available for reviews. So if you're saying you're doing an audit, then you'll complete 1240. If you're saying a review, then you'll do 1080. So all of the 11 and 12 documents are not applicable to a review engagement. And that is why we have actually split the document into an audit one and a review one. But you definitely will have a very similar document in review for your engagement quality reviews in planning as well. Then if we have a look at another question. Why does the risk also pull through to investment income, presumed risk? Okay, so that relates to document 1160 as part of the presumed risks. So if you have investment income, then it will also pull through there. So we got some advice from our content owner forum on that one. Initially, we had it, and when I say initially, back in 2014, I want to say, only in the revenue section. But we could also have firms that as part of investment income, that is considered revenue, and it is then mapped as part of investment income. So if we think about the bigger banks or some of the investment houses that could have investment income mapped there, and that is then a source of revenue. Now, there is some debate on whether it should then be mapped under revenue or whether it should be mapped under investment income, and we agree with that. But we can't make a decision on that. It depends on the different auditors where they would want to map it and where it's then disclosed. So for that reason, we have included it, if it is then considered revenue, the presumed risk for investment income as well. But if it's not relevant to your firm, and investment income for your firm is not revenue, but it is only investment income, then you can also rebut the risks there now as well. So we've built in the rebuttal of the risks in revenue and investment income. So if it's not relevant for your entity that you're auditing, then you can go and say, actually, the presumed risk is not applicable, it's not revenue, or it's not, your investment income is not considered revenue, and then you can switch those off. Okay. Let me see if there's more questions. Okay, so just a clarification on why some of the assertions were removed, a question around that. So let's go into the property, plant and equipment work program again. So if we look at the, as an example, property, plant and equipment, we have selected AVA as our assertion, the selected assertion we want to do, or we could have had recorded a risk. For the material additions, these assertions for VAT maybe could have been allocated to the completeness assertions, or no, it's a bit ridiculous. It's not the existence and occurrence, not right and obligations, but these procedures could have been allocated to one of those assertions. Or we could have maybe selected the EO assertion for PPE, and then these procedures were allocated to AVA. And then these procedures would not have shown. But this is a laws and regulations procedure. So we have to always, it doesn't matter about the assertion that we allocated to it, we have to ensure compliance with the procedure. So it's not about gaining audit evidence to substantiate the audit assurance we obtained for the assertion. It is about gaining audit evidence that the entity actually complied with the law or the regulation. So that's why we've removed the assertions completely, so that we don't link it to one specific assertion. It's actually applicable to the entity as a whole and all the assertions. And also, so that was one reason for, as an example, the compliance or the ISO 250.14 procedures. If we're looking at the substantive sampling procedures, these sampling procedures are not giving any audit evidence or any assurance. But if we had to allocate them, so we always want these procedures to show because it prompts you to select your sample. But if we had to allocate these to specific assertions, then when we get to the end and we actually conclude on this work program to say, well, for AVA, did we obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence? Then we might have said, yes, we have for sampling because we did procedures there. But those procedures were not actually audit evidence procedures. It was just the guidance on how to actually select a sample from the ISO. So people were indicating that they gained assurance, but they actually didn't gain any assurance, and that they performed procedures on specific assertions, but they actually haven't. And that's why we have removed the assertions from these procedures, so that we're clear that for these assertions, you're actually not gaining any assurance. You will gain the assurance by executing the actual procedure, but then you have to do it in this way as per the ISO standard. Okay. Okay, so if there's any more questions, I will deal with those on the chat when I am done and while Ninka and Mo is busy with their presentation. But before I hand over, I quickly want to deal with the Assurance 2024 changes. So quite a big change coming up for us next year. So next year is the brand new ISO 600 revised standard, which relates to special considerations for audits of groups of financial statements, including the work of component auditors. And that basically deals with the considerations that apply to a group audit as well as component auditors. And the new standard really revised the requirements as well as strengthen the auditor's responsibility related to professional skepticism, what needs to be included in planning and performing, the documentation there, the two-way communication really coming in between the group auditor and the component auditor, and having all of that linked. So what we have decided for next year, and this was some feedback that we also got from last year's release, is most of you, when you are involved in these types of audits, would want to do interim audits. And as this is applicable for December year-ends next year, your interim audits are most likely to start in July, August. So what we have decided to do for next year, if we look at the timeline, is we will have our major release in July. So that will then enable you to use the new content for the procedures on ISO 600 for your interim audits, so that when you do the interim audit, you already have the new content. And then when you're doing the final audit, you can just roll forward your file from there. So we will confirm dates later in next year, the exact dates, but the interim dates are that we'll have a beta session around May, or the initial webinar in June. We'll start with the beta testing, mid-June, the beta testing will end, and then most likely we'll release mid-July, with the What's New webinar being at the end of July. But as I said, we will communicate that later with the full dates. It is, however, just important to note for firms that because we've been in a cadence where generally we release in October and November, next year is going to be a bit of a change. So make sure the firm is ready for the change. The new version of working papers would be included, as well as some of the other templates as well, which we'll confirm later to the time when we get there. So it's important just that you gear yourself up, that for next year, the main probe release will be in July, and it actually won't be in October or November. So there will just be that one release. And then, of course, if your firm doesn't do any ISO 600 engagements, it's not going to have a big impact on you. You can continue as you are. And then anytime from July, upgrade to the versions that you want. So if you still want to do it in October or November, you could do that, especially thinking about firm templates. But if your firm does any audits where ISO 600 is relevant, then you would need to consider doing that a bit earlier. And then I just want to bring your attention to our Get Ahead training series. So next year, we will be presenting the Get Ahead series for all of the new intake trainees. So it is a free training webinar series. We've sent out the email already. If you haven't received the email, go check your inbox. If you don't have it in the inbox, get in touch with us so that we can already start planning for that. What we are allowing for is you can register. Just for now a number, we know you don't necessarily know how many people will be joining and their names, and that will be confirmed later, but we just need an indication from you, and then we can also be in communication with you around that to make sure those trainees get invited to the session. And then as a last point of reference, if you are looking for any of the release notes, they are all on the community, so success.caswearafrica.com. And if we go to the product updates page, there is all of the products listed for Probe Audit Premium Plus. You can click and then you'll see the release notes for the latest release. In addition to that, we also have our ISO mapping guide, which has been updated so to ISO 220 and ISQM 2, as well as the probe audit methodology. Now, nothing really changed in the audit methodology, so there's no new version for the audit methodology. The methodology stayed exactly the same. There was an ISO 315 change last year, but for this year there is no change. So it is still last year's methodology manual, but just important for you if you are looking for anything related to probe or you want to have an understanding of how the methodology works. Okay, so with that, I will hand over to Mo.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mohammed Asmal, and I'll be taking you through the main changes that we made in the 2023 templates. Okay, so first and foremost, I think we spent a lot of time with clients last year understanding the difficulties that you're experiencing, and more often it came up that you're experiencing difficulties creating your firm template. There were a lot of inefficiencies which were identified when you tried to create a firm template. The steps were hard to follow. And what we did is we re-looked at the entire process. We've come up with a guide which will take you through each and every step and give you help documentation at that particular point when you need it. And it's really a revolutionary change, and it's going to make creating the firm template a very easy process because it provides you with the help you need when you need it. In addition to that, from an efficiency point of view, we understand that every time you realize there's a bug in your template, there's a lot of upheaval within your organization. It means that you have to repackage your firm template and you have to re-roll it out. And we definitely understand that you all sell time, and we don't want you all to be fixing bugs and wasting time rolling out new templates. So to that end, we've added automated tests to help identify bugs sooner before you ship it out so that you can be as efficient as possible. So it's the first step in our automated testing journey, and we're proud to introduce those tests that we're going to show you today, but it's definitely going to make we feel much more efficient. Secondly, we're going to look at some of how we can give you all better insights into your data. I think after speaking to clients, it came up over and over again that you've run an update on your client file and you don't know what's changed. We've made a fundamental shift in the way we work, where from the software, we've actually tied you back to the release notes. So when you get to a section, the idea is that we'll show you a section which has changed, and you'll be able to see through the release notes why it has changed. So we'll go through that as well. From a performance point of view, we're going to, we made some enhancements to the optimizer screen. I think from a performance point of view, we've been on a journey, and we're still on this journey. We haven't solved the problem yet, but we noticed that a lot of people weren't using the optimizer. So we tweaked it a bit to help you guys make it easier to use, and we're going to show you some of that. And then we're going to go through the enhancements that we made to Caseware Working Papers. So first up, I think let's start with the firm template guide. So on screen, you should see the old starting point when it came to creating your firm template. This old document really scared people. I gave them sleepless nights, and we're proud to say that we've completely deprecated it now. This has been replaced by the firm template guide. I think when using this old document, users had a number of problems. Users didn't know how many firm templates to create. They had questions on, well, is it one per entity type, one per branch, those types of things. I think users didn't know if they should create a new firm template or update the existing one. You guys didn't know how to decide if they should enforce a standard in their organization in terms of once your firm template is packaged, whether you should tell people to update or do a file from existing. This document was long and complicated. The steps being very hard to follow. There was a lot of problems in this document. So we looked at each one of them and tried to come up with a solution. And I think what we've done is we've created the firm template guide. So your starting point with the firm template guide is always going to be our success community. Just like last year, you go to the success community and you search for firm template overview. And what we've done is we've put all the help documentation on the community. So I'm going to quickly go to the community to show you the starting point. If you start here, it gives you all the information that you need to create your firm template correctly the first time and in the most efficient manner possible. In order to do this, we had to change the way you work slightly. Some of the steps we've provided for you first on the success community. Then we make you go to the firm template guide for the majority of the steps. And then we send you back to the community for the steps on how to package. I know it seems a bit complicated, but it was the best possible user journey for the problems that we were trying to solve. So I think this first step that we looked at, so we broke the journey down into 7 steps essentially. We said from a planning perspective, we wanted to give you enough information on how many firm templates you should create, whether you should be updating an old file or creating a file, and basically put out all the benefits that you should expect to get from a firm template. So that was, once you've called, we've suggested answers or given you questions and given you the help on how to answer some of those questions when you're in planning. So we'll go through some of those ones now. Then on preparing your starting point, over here it was helping you decide whether you should update your old file or create a new file. Then you go into, once you've created your file, we want to really bring to the fore all the changes that we've made. So we've created the data retention view, and there's a step-by-step guide that we've created on how to review your files. Then you can go with, once you've reviewed your files, we felt the next logical thing would be for you to go and make your own customizations. And there was a plethora of customizations available to be made without going into design mode. So we brought all that information to the fore, and so that it's easy for you to really create a good customized set of financials without going into design mode. Once you've made your customizations, we brought in some automated tests which you can run on your firm template, so that you can get a reasonable level of assurance that you're shipping the right thing the first time. And ultimately, you'll make your probe changes and you'll package your firm template. So we know that each of these steps contain a lot of sub-steps, and I think we want to make sure we go through all of them in detail now. So I think the first thing to note is that you'll always be linked to the next step in the process. So from the overview, you're going to be jumping to the planning stages. In the planning stages, we want you to answer a couple of questions, like what benefits are you targeting with your firm template? And do you actually need a firm template? I think in majority of instances, we do advise that you create a firm template so that you can add your own logo, add your own headers and footers, especially on the assurance reports. But you can also use our standard template for that. So I think we're going into the details of should you be creating a firm template, and then if you decide that you do need a firm template, we kind of are guiding you on how many firm templates you should create. Often we've seen they create a separate firm template for each entity type, which is highly inefficient. Our standard templates contain multiple entity types within one template. And the benefit of that is that if you actually do pick up a bug, you only have to fix it in one template, and you don't have to fix it in 3 or 4 or 5 templates and then have the problem in rolling out all of them. So I think we brought this information to the fore. The other thing that we've done in the planning step, because we want to give you enough information to make the right decision. So once we've looked at how many firm templates you need, it was important for us to try guide you on what your starting point should be. Because we understand that you could have an old firm template from last year, and you could have the option of updating that old firm template, or you have the option of creating a brand new file from our standard Caseware Africa template. So we have gone and listed the pros and cons of either decision. We support both decisions, but it's just to make sure that you're fully aware of the impact different decisions have further down the line. So as part of planning, if anything's still unclear, please let me know. We've done our best to make it as self-explanatory as possible, but we're always looking to improve. I think when we got to this point, once you've planned, it felt important to us that you know how to access the latest version of the software. We know that some of you will start with your firm templates Monday or today, but then you've got others who'd only start with their firm templates early next year. And what we want to do is that we want to make sure that you always have access to the latest versions of the software available. To that end, we've created help documentation specifically related to staying up to date with Caseware Africa. So on this page, I think it's important that you familiarize this page, keep checking this page. We won't be changing the way, we shouldn't be changing, we hardly ever change the way we release, but I think it's more around bringing the information to the fore. So at Caseware, we will only release a full template for desktop solutions, a full template or a hotfix. Those are the two primary methods of deploying software to you guys. In terms of a full template, we've provided the links to the success community on where to go get the full template, should you be starting your firm template journey. And also where to go if you're looking to check if we've released a hotfix. We don't intend releasing any hotfix. We've gone through a great deal of QA on these new templates, but if we do release another hotfix, you'd be sure to find it at the end of this link. So once you know where to get the latest software, it's important that you also receive all communication from us. So we've got two primary methods of communicating with you guys. One is via email, and then the second being the notification manager. So the email, if you are not receiving emails from us, please come to the website and click this link. It will give you detailed instructions on how to make sure that you are on our mailing list. We always want you to be up to date with every mail that we send. Especially, and what we've noticed is that a lot of people or some of the firm champions are not in the detail, are not within Caseware Working Paper files often. So the notification manager is built within Working Papers. So every time you open up Caseware Working Papers, you'll get a new notification telling you that new software is available. And for those who aren't in the software on a daily basis, we really, really need you to make sure that you're registered and getting the emails from us. So now that we've talked about planning from the firm template, through our help documentation and as part of planning, we've made sure that you have access to the latest software, how to get the latest software from us, how we're going to be communicating with you, and how to register for it, for the communication should you not be getting it. Once you've been through the planning, I think the next important step that we've created on this firm template journey is to actually prepare your starting point. So with preparing your starting point, you have two options. You're either creating a new firm template or updating your existing. In the planning steps before, we gave you the pros and cons of whether you should be creating a new file or updating your existing file. So you should have a good idea by the time you get to this page what you're going to do. I'm just going to, as with our help documentation, it all flows from one to the next. So when you're creating a new firm template, we've given you detailed steps at every step of the way, how to uninstall all your templates, how to clean up your PC before, after install, or before installing, how to install the Caseware Working Paper templates, how to create a new file. We even give you guidance on what we think a good naming convention should be. We try to be as specific as possible and give you help at every step of the way. But ultimately, once you've created a new file, you're going to get to the page where you're going to have to download the firm template guide. So the firm template guide has the rest of the steps that you need to follow. So on the Cost Success community, we've got the planning steps and we've got the steps to prepare your starting point. But once you've prepared your starting point or got your initial version of your new firm template file, you have to bring in the latest firm template guide. So this guide is only available to people who have download rights on the Caseware Success community. And the reason we did that is because there's a few features within the guide which you might not necessarily want to share with everybody in your firm. For example, it's got a feature on how to easily, a button which you click which easily lets you change your design mode password. So we couldn't make it available. We wanted to make it as easy as possible for the champions to create the firm template, but we didn't feel that this document necessarily needs to go to every user in the firm. So that's why we put it behind a login for download. I've already downloaded a version and put it in a file, and I'm going to show you that now. So ultimately, I've downloaded from the Success community, I've extracted the zip file, and I've just dragged and dropped the firm template guide into my new Caseware file, which is going to be my new firm template. When I open it up, it looks like this. The reason we used Caseview and is so that we could give you the best experience possible. I think with the Word document, we weren't able to skip and hide steps which were not applicable to you. So as part of this journey of making it as efficient and as easy for you to follow as possible, what we've done is we've made sure that based off your selections, if you select, for example, and let me show you an example quickly. If you had in your planning decided that you're going to create a new firm template from scratch, then these would be the steps applicable to you. But and notice there's an execute button there, which is going to hide now. However, if you went and selected update your existing firm template, you get a different set of steps. And it was very hard to do the skipping and doing the skipping and hiding and giving you the easiest user journey when it was a Word document. The added benefit of having it in Caseview is that we were able to read data directly from the working papers file and execute automated scripts and do things for you automatically just by clicking a button. So that's the reason that we chose a Caseview document. And there's many enhancements that's gone into this guide. I'm going to take you through some of them now. So at this point in time, we were on the Success community where we were doing our planning. We prepared our starting point. We downloaded the Caseview document from the Success community, and we dragged it into our new file. Let's say, for example, for instance, you missed the planning step on the community or the prepare your starting point community, and you just found the download page and you downloaded it and added it to your file. We still ask you if you've followed the planning steps on the community. So which firm template benefits are you targeting? How many firm templates are needed? If you click any of these links, it's going to take you back to the planning steps. So if, for example, you do, or you get an instance or a client that has got the firm template guide, we still refer you back to the planning steps. We really think it's that important, so we did not skip it as part of the firm template guide. So don't worry if you get the order a bit wrong, you still have the opportunity to follow the steps in the guide and reach the same outcome. Okay. Within the firm template guide, I think the other important thing to note is the help takes you to the exact guidance when you need it. For example, for every step in the process, like update your old firm template. If I click on that link, I'm gonna drag it onto the main screen. It gives you the exact options that we suggest you select to complete that step correctly. And that's the level of help that we want to provide you throughout this entire firm template journey. And we think we've actually got it right. And I'm quite proud to say we've added over 50 documents to our success community. And we really think that it's just the starting point in many more that we'll do across some of the other features that we do implement. Okay, so once you've prepared your starting point and you've got the firm template guide in your file, I think the first round of changes is to understand what has actually changed within your file. So we've provided you obviously with the release notes, a link directly from the firm template guide to the release notes. And further to that, we've given you a new feature called the data retention view. So the data retention view has been in the software, but we've expanded it quite substantially to help you understand what's changed. I'm just going to jump to my slide deck to show you what it looks like. So this is the data retention view. You can find it under the document menu within the financial statements, and we've added a few more options here. With this, it's important to note why you should be using this. This is intended for people that have updated their financial statements and want to know what's changed. So typically during an update process, you'll have an existing section that needed to change. So we'll update that section. If we didn't update a section, the second thing we could do is have to create maybe new sections for new content. So that was what we'll call inserted sections. So if you wanted to see all content, existing content that was there and has been updated, you'll click on view all content which has been updated. If you want to see all new content which is brand new and inserted for the first time, you'll just have to go and click view all content which is being inserted. And for paragraphs, we'll give you an indicator, or we'll show you all the paragraphs which have changed after update. And further to that, we've introduced another new one in terms of you might have a section that's restricted or protected in your file. We now give you we tell you now through this data retention view of view all content which has been protected and not updated, that we'll give you a list of all the sections that are in your file that weren't updated because they were basically restricted from updates by you, but there's a newer version in the library. You've never had the ability to see this. It was a lot of guesswork previously. We've taken all the guesswork out of it. So with that, let me show you what it looks like. The important part to know here is that this data retention view, although we've integrated it with the firm template guide, every user in your firm that does an update will have it available to them. So it's not tied to the firm template guide. I think it's a helpful review tool from when you're updating your old firm, from your old firm template to your new firm template, and that's why we included it part of your guide. But any user that updates a file will also have access to these data retention views. Any person that creates a new file where no update has been run, they don't data retention view, so that they won't see this menu. It's not applicable to them. So those are the parameters that will make it show or not, and it's specifically meant when you run an update in your file and you want to know what's changed from before update to after update. Okay, so first and foremost, I think I'm going to show you updated sections. Updated sections, just a reminder, are sections that were in your file. So it was in your old firm template or was in your old client file, and there was a change required to be made. It could have been a table, it could have been expand collapse, it could have been paragraph content that was in your old file but needed to change for disclosure changes or either through a bug fix in your new file, and that's the list of sections that you'd see in the document map on the left. So the data retention view leverages the document map functionality. For anybody that's not familiar with the document map, you'll see that there's a document map option under view where my cursor is hovering now. It basically gives you a list or a hyperlink almost to all the different areas within your financial statements, or hyperlink to each and individual statement, accounting policy, or note. So we've leveraged that by dynamically recreating it for the data retention view. And once you unselect the data retention view, your document map will revert back to what it was. So please don't feel that once you use the data retention view, you won't be able to get your old document map back. Okay, so what's actually happened here is I've previously run an update on this file. And I've now selected that I want to see after update all the sections that have been updated. And this list on the left is showing me every section in the financial statements that's been updated. So it's telling me file details has been updated, cover page has been updated, country of incorporation has been updated. It'll only show you the sections which are applicable to you. So i.e. the sections which are not hidden. Because especially as a user, you don't want to be bogged down in reviewing things which are not applicable to the file that you're working in. For example, if biological assets was not used in a client file, it's pointless you reviewing the changes that happen to biological assets because it's basically hidden in your file. But when you're doing the firm template process and you want to see all changes that happened in the file, we suggest that you look at all the changes in the file through design mode. So with updated sections, because I just want you to note that the list has become substantially longer. We'd expect the firm champion, when they're doing the firm template, to look at it through design mode to see a full list of all sections that have been updated. And we'd expect normal users, the clerks in files, to only use it through the normal enabled editing interface. And what we'd expect, or how we envisage the process to work, is if we take a change, for example, share capital, I think what's important to note, it included the section label on the left, notes 02103. And the reason we did that is that we really wanted to make it as easy as possible for you to tie back to the release notes. So on screen, I'm going to put the release notes, our latest release notes, side by side with the content in the financial statements. If you go to the release notes, and this was typically the problem that we had, we'd tell you share capital got updated, but you never knew where share capital was in the financials. However, now if you go and type in the section label next to share capital, which is notes, you'll immediately be able to see that for share capital, there was an improvement that was made. We've updated the narration area for unissued share capital and also included 2 radio buttons to enable the user to select between different options. And immediately you're able to tie the release notes to what the change that's happened in your financial statements. You can see the narration area, you can see the new radio buttons, And this is the process that we will envisage you following throughout. If I use another example, let's go to the detailed income statement, details 001. If I go to our release notes and if I search for details, here's it here, come up already. It's telling me there's a fix. We have updated the profit and loss on sale of assets and liabilities to be loss on sale of assets and liabilities in other expenses section. So immediately you're able to identify the change that happened. It's taken all of the guesswork away. Another thing that you should be cognizant of is that you might need to find it once or twice in the release notes because there's multiple changes that we've made to sections. For example, in the detailed income statement section, over and above making that bug fix, we've also included these extra lines. So ordinary levies, levy 1, levy 2 are all new rows which are now in your detailed income statement. So we've really worked hard at making it easy for you to understand what's changed in your financial statements by tying it into what's in the release notes. I think from an update sections point of view, it's important that you'll understand that we've only put the list of sections on the left that are applicable to you in the file you're working, but as a firm champion, you should probably be looking at reviewing every single change that happened and using the data retention view while in design mode. I'm going to quickly move on to maybe the next data retention view item, which is going to make a big difference in your life. We feel so we're going to go and look at inserted sections. So inserted sections is typically a thing that we do during the update process to bring in new content which is there for the first time. Sorry, I need a sip of water. My throat is getting a bit scratchy. Okay. So I'm going to use, for this example, I'm going to be in design mode to review some of the changes that have happened. And what you see here, if we look at, for example, levy schedule, it's the same process between all of our data retention view options. If I go and don't even use the section label, if I just type in levy schedule, I'll be able to see, oh, okay, there's a levy schedule which has been added for the first time to this file, and I can get the reason why. I think it's only applicable to body corps, and that's what I was trying to say. Because the levy schedule is only applicable to body corps, this file is set to company. So anybody that's preparing, any person that's drafting a financial statements for any entity that's not a body corporate doesn't need to review the levy schedule after an update. And therefore, when you use it in enabled editing mode, it's not going to be available. The next data retention view, and all this we do is just so that we only spend time on the things which matter and are important. The next thing I think that is important that we show you is maybe view all content which is protected. So now after you've run an update, you've got an idea of all the sections which have been updated in your financial statements. You've got a view of all the new sections which are in your financial statements. But you might have protected a section. And what we mean by that is you, in this example, in this client file, deferred tax was customized by you last year for whatever reason. Maybe you inserted some rows, some additional paragraph content, and you protected it because you didn't want to lose it. However, and typically last year or previously when you ran an update, you never knew that this content is out of date and that there's a newer version that Caseware has released. So what we've done now is we've taken the guesswork away. For any section that you've got that's been protected or restricted, we obviously maintain all your changes in those sections, but you've got now the tool which will help you identify that there's a new section available for this node. So if we do the same step where we're seeing that deferred tax notes 013 has changed, we go to the release notes, we search for notes 013 or deferred tax, I'm not finding it. And what I don't want you all to worry when you see it in that or when that happens. There's a general improve. We couldn't when we made a change across multiple sections. What we've done is we've got a general area in our release notes which has changes applicable to multiple sections. And in this section, for example, I know we've gone and implemented undefined differences in multiple tables across our financial statements and fixed the skipping and hiding or printing of the subtotal rows. So all you have to do is in the release notes, go to the general improvements area and you'll find the change that's applicable to that section. It's as simple as that. The next important thing to mention, I think, specifically with regards to the data retention view, is viewing all paragraphs which have changed after update. Often what happens is that you type in your own wording into the financial statements. We come along and we replace that section, and you don't even know that the wording has changed, or you read the paragraph and say, but this has been different, why has this changed? So we take the guesswork out of it. What we've done now is we've given you a list of all the different paragraphs where the wording has changed. You click on the item in the document map, it'll jump directly to that paragraph. You right click and say show previous wording, and just like that, it'll tell you what the previous wording was and what the exact differences are between the old wording and the new wording, should you want to revert back. Another example of how it works, you jump to the section, you right click on the paragraph and you say show previous wording, and just like that, it's telling you the new wording starts with in cases and the old wording was the amortization charge. So this is the first step in helping you understand what's changed. I think there's a few more that will come up as we go ahead and take this feature further, but I think the majority of what we showed you here today will make it much easier for you as a firm champion to understand, to create your firm template, because you have a full understanding of what's new within the firm or from Caseware Africa. And as a user, if you're using it just as a user to drafting financial statements, you have a full understanding of what's changed within your client file. And obviously you've got a watered down list, so you only have to review the things that are applicable to you. I really am looking for, I think the feedback that we've gotten so far on the data retention view has been very positive. And if anybody wants to suggest any new views that they'd like to see, please feel free to reach out. Okay, so I'm going to jump back to the firm template guide, because on this journey, we've made it easy for you to plan. We've showed you, given you step-by-step instructions on how to create your starting point and how to determine what your starting point should be. We've made it very easy for you to understand what's changed in your file. We've given, after you, we don't only make changes to the financial statements. We make changes to other areas as well. I think, and the other important area or key area which drives a lot of the content and what shows is the mapping database. So we felt it's important for you, especially if you create your own map numbers, to be able to compare your new firm template to your old firm template from a map number perspective, and also to compare the new mapping database that we've provided to the old one. Just so that as a firm champion, you have insights into the changes that we've made with regards to the mapping database. For most people that don't add map numbers to their files, it's not really a required step. If you want to use it, you're more than welcome to. As with everything, there's a help button next to it, which jumps directly to the sections that give you more detail on how to use it. So in this instance, we've got a compare button. When you click it, it'll ask you for the path to the file you're in, and the path to your new firm template and the path to your old firm template. And you click on run. Once it's completed running, it will give you a date and timestamp of when it was completed, and it'll give you if there's any differences, it'll give you a red cross. If there weren't any differences, it'll give you a green tick. So especially with a mapping compare, it's not always the case that you need to get differences. So I've already followed the steps in the help document and copied the information from the text files into these Excel files, just to give you a quick understanding of what you should expect if you do the mapping compare. So it's split up into two different reports. One is, it'll show you the map numbers which are new, that means inserted for the first time, and it'll show you the map numbers which have been deleted in one report. The second report will show you the map numbers which were there but have changed. So if I run through the first one, we can see here that file 1 is the new firm template and file 2 is the old firm template, and it's saying for that map number which had that description, it's new, it's inserted for the first time, it doesn't exist in your old firm template, it only exists in your new ones. This has come in and been inserted for the first time. These map numbers, on the other hand, have actually been deleted because they exist in the old file, but they don't exist in the new file. So these are, it's an easy way of telling, these are my inserted map numbers, what they related to. For example, this was regard to share-based payments, this was regard to investment in subsidiaries. And you can review if you had created map numbers within share-based payments or within investment in subsidiaries, whether you need to, maybe you just have to review whether you should be changing yours or not to cater for the new structures that might be in the mapping database. Similarly, from a mapping perspective, once you know what's inserted and what map numbers have been deleted, you also want to know where things have changed. In this particular file, in the old farm template, they had changed descriptions, extended descriptions, because they wanted to call farm fish farm. And what it's done, it's highlighting all the differences per property. So at the name level, it's telling you that for this map number, my new file is called farm fish. My old firm template called it fish farm. Now that you're aware of this information, you can double check exactly which one is the right one that you want to keep. Maybe you want to call CGT capital gains tax. And it lets you find easily all the differences that happened in the mapping database. If you only want to just see the map numbers, you can deselect everything and it'll just show you the numbers that are applicable. But we don't, in the mapping, a map number has many properties. One is the name, you've got the extended description as well. And for each of the properties, you can quickly look at the filters to see if there's been any changes to any of the different properties. So normally, most importantly, people will be interested in the extended description and maybe the flip type. But if you need to take it to the lowest level of detail, we make it very easy for you to quickly see if there's been or what are the exact changes with regards to the mapping. So that's from a firm template perspective, how we've made it easier to understand the changes that we've made and for you to compare it to what you had previously. We've done it on the financial statements through the data retention view, and we've done it at the mapping number level through the compare mapping. So at this point, you should have a very good understanding of what's changed between your old firm template and your new firm template, and exactly what's been introduced in the new firm template through our Caseware Africa template. The next thing that you need to start doing is start reviewing the file as is and customizing it to suit your likings. So we have a lot of options, a plethora of options available in form mode for you to make changes to various areas of your financial statements. A lot of these options were hidden and didn't show up or wasn't obvious. So what we've done is we've grouped them all together. So when you get to this page, it's a very safe page to land on and to make changes. If you follow the changes through this page, you shouldn't have any problems. It doesn't let you go, it doesn't guide you to do design, to go into design mode to do any of the things in here. However, it lets you do so much. How it starts is it guides you to probably start importing a trial balance. It then, in your old firm template, especially if you created a new file, you want to import your previous firm settings. Just to give you an example of what we mean by that, for people that are not familiar with the firm settings and what it'll do. Say, for example, you created a set of financial statements, and a new set of financial statements. So it obviously has our style sheets. It has our look and feel. It doesn't have your old firm templates look and feel. We didn't want you to go and spend a lot of time going through each and every option and reselecting it. We automated that process for you a while ago. We're just making it available to you through the firm template guide. What it'll do is, for example, if you had your note headings set to be capitals, if you had your justification to be left indent, whatever settings and format changes that you made in your old file, once you import firm settings from your old file, and it'll apply it to your new file. So immediately, with one single step, you're in a very good position in terms of settings and format, and ensuring that the same settings and format that you had in your old file are applied to your new file. Once you've done that, we guide you to the info store, where you might want to fill in director names or partner names, so that you don't have to continually refill it in on every single engagement file. Then we put you in touch with the global formatting options. So once you've imported the previous firm settings, you can go and review that the firm settings are applied, and if you want to make changes thereafter, because you want to move away from capitalization or you want to change the font size, you're going to be using this option to basically effect changes across the whole document. Then you probably we felt that you'll probably want to turn certain pages on and off. What that means is that you, for example, will want to have your XBRL page off, your corporate governance report page off. You give you the ability to quickly decide what you want to show, what you don't want to show. As with everything, we've given you help. For example, I think the important things from a help perspective on this page is how to sort pages and change the order of pages from within the index page. I mean, change the order of the financial statements and then change the order of it on the index page. But we've tried our best to give you the exact detail when you need it. Often what happens is, especially with this menu, for example, I'm just going to open the help first. Is you'd get here and you'll say, okay, you want me to change row 1 to uppercase, but you don't know what row 1 is. So we've made it very easy for you to quickly see that row 1 links with that, row 2 links with that, so that it takes the guesswork of making changes and flipping between the financials, doing a print preview to see how each option affects the financials. So we really try to give you the information you need and make you as efficient as possible. I'm cognizant of time, so I'm gonna go through things maybe just at a high level, the important things. I think what's very important for me is that you understand a lot of clients weren't aware of the different types of letterheads. There you could do pre-printed letterheads and electronic letterheads. So when you're doing your firm template, please take note of this option. You can build your electronic letterhead into the file. You don't have to use pre-printed stationery. You can change the footers as well, and we go into detail on how to do all of that. The other important things on this document is the automatic tests that we've created. For example, this lets you create. It'll go and check if you've got duplicate section labels in your file. So typically what would happen previously is that somebody would copy a section in design mode and they'd make their changes, but you'd end up with 2 sections with the same name. And every time you try to update that file or we try to do certain things with it, it would cause a lot of problems in the financial statements. And we don't want you to do those types of changes in design mode and cause problems for the files that are created off your firm template later on. So what we've done is we've created a new super insert option. If I jump to the financial statements quickly, we've got, I'm going to quickly switch back to the normal document map. It just makes it easier to identify where I want to get to. I want to go to, for example, operating expenses section. Because I know I've got a beautiful input table here, and I actually want to change my auditor's remuneration section. It's got this table, I'm not too happy with it. I'd prefer to have something else for whatever reason. But I'm just using this as an example, but this insert copy of an existing section functionality is available everywhere. All you have to do is you have to identify the section that you want to copy, you right-click properties, and you'll get the section label. If you double-click on the label, it'll copy it to memory. Then you use the normal super insert options, or you'd interact with super insert exactly in the way that you normally would. You go to super insert, you stand on where you want to insert a section, and you're going to see this new option, insert copy of existing section. When you click it, it's going to prompt you for the name of the section that you want to copy. All you have to do is fill it in, and it'll start the process of copying the existing section from one place in your financials to another. This is one of the biggest improvements that we've made with regards to efficiency. I think anybody that's tried to ever copy anything in design mode has a very big problem once they've copied something, because they end up with duplicate goods, duplicate section labels, two cells writing to the same CV database, which slows down your file. What we've done is we've made it very easy for you to copy an existing section, and we take care of all the technicalities that you have to change normally in the background. So to give you an example, typically if you had done this in design mode and had it change the goods or had it change the sections, labels, and you executed this test, it will tell you that you've got duplicate goods. Then you'd have to go back in design mode, clear all the goods, add new goods, come back, rerun the test, find that you've made some mistakes, and then go fix it again. But as you can see, what's happened here is that we've made the copy, we've run the test, and we haven't got any feedback. With everything, the help button will link you directly to with the detail that you need if you have a problem on how to fix it. So we believe that we've got the beginnings of a very good automated testing journey. I think the next step is to make your probe changes. We will be adding the probe changes to the firm template guide at some point. We're just scheduling it with Stan at the moment. But ultimately, you're going to end up in a position where you want to package your file. The most important features that we've done here is that we saw that people were packaging with the incorrect version of the scripts. What we've done is created a button which you click, and it'll immediately tell you if you've got the right version of the scripts or not. Say, for example, you started your packaging journey, you had the new template installed, somebody came with you to a bug, so you installed your old template. What that means is that you've got, the last thing you've installed is your old template with your old scripts. And what would happen previously is that we'd find that people would create a firm template and package it with an old set of scripts, and then things wouldn't work the way they intended it to. So we wanted to stop that problem from happening. So in the firm template guide, when you click this button, if you are in that position and the scripts are outdated, it'll tell you. Then you'll know that you need to reinstall the Caseware Africa template. This was a manual step, but that we used to ask you to do previously. Now we've just made it a button click. And I think one of the important and most convenient time-saving features that we've created, I just want you to notice that the auditor's remuneration, some of these notes are on. What we've given you is a button. When you click it, it'll automatically go to your financial statements and close every single note and accounting policy. Previously, with over about 100 notes and ACPs, users needed to do it manually, and it was a very frustrating, time-consuming process. So we've gone and we've automated that for you now. We've also, while that's running, I don't want to jump onto some of the next steps. We've also given you buttons to quickly back up your file. We include backups at specific points in the firm template guide where we felt makes sense. So should you have a problem, it'll automatically, you have the ability to automatically revert to a safe point. So just like that, if we jump back to the financial statements now, you'll see that all the accounting policies and notes have been turned off. So with that, I think we've made a lot of changes to the firm template guide. It's led to a lot of efficiencies, not only from a firm champion and firm template creation process, but also from a user's who's drafting perspective, especially with the data retention views, and we hope it adds a lot of value. I think the next big improvement that we've made is regards to the financial statements optimizer. So with the optimizer, it's been a feature that's been in the financials for a long time, but it really, we didn't see it get the uptake that it really deserved. So we've made a couple of changes to hopefully make it easier to understand and help you get to the right level sooner. We understand that you should have as fast a product as possible, and the template can be very slow. So just to give you a bit of history, so we spent last year and the year before optimizing our scripts. We made several gains with regards to the opening speed, the amount of time it takes to save a file, how long it takes to open Caseware, the update time in particular. And then we looked at what more we could do. So we realized that there's a direct correlation between the amount of content in your file and the speed within your financial statements. So the more content you have, the slower the file will get. The less content you have, the faster the file will get. So we realized that most files don't need 100% of the content. So, and most files use about 40% of the content. According to our benchmarks, when we purge the 60% of the content which is not required, your file gets significantly faster. But a lot of people weren't purging the content. I think purging is a very scary word. It implies that you're taking it out of the file and you won't be able to get it back. But I want to assure you that it's nothing like that. With our optimizer, when you purge something in your file, it's only out of your file. It is still in your library. And as soon as it's required again, for example, PPE gets purged from your financial statements because there wasn't anything mapped to property, plant, and equipment. The moment you map an account that has a balance to PPE, it will automatically launch and bring in your financial statements and bring in the PPE note into your financial statements. So I think the only real change that I want to show you now is on the optimizer itself. What we've done is previously it used to tell you that it wants to bring in the PPE note only. But this year we've changed it to also suggest things that we recommend that you delete from your file. And in this screen now you'll see these biological assets is marked with the X. What that means is that this note is in your file currently, it does not have a balance, and it is switched off. So it's effectively not being used in this file. The only thing that it's doing in this file is slowing this file down. So what we've done now for this release is we've automatically moved it to the left-hand side so that if you choose to, you have the ability to purge it safely, knowing that this is not going to affect the balancing or the integrity of your financial statements. The other thing I think I just want to bring to the fore is that when you look at the optimizer, and if you see something that's black under notes, and if you hover over it, it's given you a tooltip to say that this note is in your file and it's switched on, but it doesn't have a balance. We don't anticipate or feel that you should ever have a note that's switched on when it doesn't have a balance. So the moment you switch it off, so if I go to the investment property note, and if I go and turn it off, what you'll notice is Because the note doesn't have a balance, and because the note is turned off, we're going to automatically recommend that you purge it from the file, which is a substantial change to how it used to work. So I'm going to turn it off now. And this will ensure that you have the fastest file possible. So please, if there's one takeaway from today, please use the new optimizer and make sure that you optimize your files so that you can get the best possible experience. This is one of the first things that we're still unpacking more when it comes to 2024 in terms of speed, but with the functionality that we want to make sure that you leverage the functionality that's already available. The last thing I want to say on the optimizer is that when you do a file new from existing, it will automatically delete the notes which are not required in your file. So for example, biological assets, if it's in your firm template and in your existing client file, there's no account mapped to biological assets, it'll automatically take it out. Where previously we used to only automatically bring it in. So this is to ensure that once you do a file new from existing, you are going to have a file that's fully optimized immediately without doing anything additional. Okay, I think speed is very important to us. We're going to continue on improving the speed. We're working with a few clients at the moment to understand what the frustrations are. We're looking specifically at the sync speed. Our current thoughts are on creating a Caseview document, which will help you identify the different speed-related issues that could be in your file. But if there's anybody that wants to help us on this journey and refine that solution, please reach out to me. I think it's something that's important to you, and it's also very important to us. Then lastly, I think I want to move on to what's new in Caseware Working Papers. We've got a new history event, which will show you once a file is locked, if it was unlocked, and then when it was relocked. Other changes that we've made was on the UI for various screens. So your consolidate screen, your find parent screen, your connect sync copy screen, they've all been updated. We focused a lot, especially last year, with the integration with Sherlock. So Sherlock is a tool that will collect metadata from all your working papers file and bring it into our Sherlock app on the cloud. So if you want to see how many 2023 engagement files you have, or per template or per reporting standard, and various other features, I really suggest that you have a look at what Myron's got available in his Sherlock webinars. Other important things that we've done is we've done an integration with IDEA from a Caseware Working Papers perspective, and various bug fixes in various areas. So with that, I want to thank you for your time, and I'm going to hand back to Christian Stein. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much, Mo. So that brings us to the next part, and that is what is new within IDEA. So Mo has mentioned some of the changes within working papers, and one of the changes is also integration within Caseware IDEA. But before we jump into the actual integration items, let's just look at IDEA as a whole. So the first thing that has changed in the IDEA 12.2 release is a brand new look and experience. So all of the icons has been aligned, we've redesigned the ribbon, and it now gives you a more clearer analysis of where you are working. So if we're looking at analysis, that's where you would do all the analysis. If you're looking at data, that's where you would add, remove, delete records. And then home is where you would then do most of the import, export, and managing of the engagement. Okay, so that is the new look and feel. Then we've also incorporated the web view 2 from Microsoft. So that makes IDEA now much more hybrid, and it brings web-enabled resources such as Passport and the IDEA Lab closer within IDEA. And it also allows you to work within a web browser directly from IDEA. And it then also allows to maintain compatibility with the Microsoft Suite. And just on that, we've also now updated IDEA to be compatible with Windows 11. So if we then have a look at some of the other actions that this then enabled, we can now perform smart actions. So smart actions we can do, so if, for example, I look at a customer database and we want to perform a smart action on this specific database, we can now do that directly from within IDEA. And there, if I say, for example, I want to use a smart action, I can right click on any field. There's some smart actions available, Google Maps, Google Search, or Google Translate. Let's do Google Maps, and what is going to happen is IDEA will directly submit the data into Google, it will do a map search, and then it will come back to us with that specific item that it found. So there we can see it found Bull de Face. It doesn't have that port in, but we can click, we can have a look, and this one then shows you where the place is and what it is, what's going on there. So you could also do an address search to verify if the company exists, and a few smart actions then included there. Then looking at the quick summarization and what we have done there, we have made the summarization within IDEA 40% faster than what it was before. So if I look at my INV movements table, there's about 1.4 million transactions in this specific database. I've hidden some of the columns, but what I'll do is I'll go into summarization, and I'm going to summarize based on the transaction year as well as the warehouse. And I would like to see the transaction value as a summarization. I'm going to create a quick summarization, and then I'll also ask it to create a result for me. So we're going to sum those transaction values. And I will click on OK. Now think about how long it will take you to summarize 1.4 million transactions anywhere else based on the warehouse, the transaction year, sum the amounts, even if it was just a pivot table that we created. And there we can see IDEA has actually finalized the summarization for us per transaction year, per warehouse, the number of records, as well as the value of those records. We can then send it to Working Papers. So this is now one of the integrations that we have built. So when you get a result, I can send it to Working Papers. And because I have a Working Papers file open already, it has picked up on that. It brings up my Working Papers file, and we are busy working in inventory. So I will go to section 405 for inventories, and I can give it a number, so 405.99. Click on OK. So automatically IDEA will then push the information into my Working Papers file. So if I scroll down to section 405, it is then already there waiting for me, and my document is available for me to use. So that's one of the integrations we have created from an IDEA side. After you've done any actions, we can then integrate that back. Then for those of you who's using scripting in Python, we've upgraded the IDEA Python engine to work with the latest Python libraries as well as APIs, and that allows you to create your own Python scripts as well as import the latest from the IDEA Lab plugins. So for those of you who use the IDEA Lab, there we have the IDEA Lab. If you click on that, it will open all of the available options for you, and you can now see that we've expanded on the library. All of the new IDEA Lab items have been included, and there's quite a few that you can now use as part of the IDEA Lab. We also have some additional Python scripts and some custom functions, built-in add functions, as well as documentation resources. If you are using Python, just remember that within IDEA, you do need to actually allow for that. So if you go File Options, you need to switch on that you want to integrate with Python. So it won't automatically be available. Something you need to enable, and the reason for that is you need to recognize that Python is a third-party integration, and there could be some security risks by downloading scripts from the Python libraries, as it is a shared community. And it would be important for you to just review those before you just run them and integrate them. And then we've also added OneDrive support. So for those of you using OneDrive and you want to sync your idea projects with using OneDrive, there are some instructions for you on the community on how to enable that in the release notes. So the most important part is just you need to have OneDrive installed first. Your documents folder has to be synced, and then when you install IDEA, then those IDEA projects will then sync as well. If you're working on a server and you want to share between multiple documents, or multiple users, there's instructions for you there as well. Now let's look at the working papers integration. So I've already shown you the sending to working papers, but then if we start from a working paper side, you can now see, in addition to what we've launched before with integration in 1050 and Probe, all clients can now actually launch an IDEA project from within Caseware Working Papers and link the two together. So you don't have to be a Probe user. Audit International, financials, you can launch, and you can then execute some procedures. If you've imported your general ledger within Working Papers, you can execute some tests there, or if you have your accounts separate, you can also do that. And then together with the launch of an IDEA project, you can also execute smart analyzer procedures. So we'll ask you which project you are working with and how do you want to associate. Because I have it open, it will then immediately associate the two together. And because it is then open, we can go and execute IDEA Smart Analyzer tests directly from within Working Papers. And with the Smart Analyzer tests, those are available from the IDEA libraries. So if you don't have any of those Smart Analyzer tests, go and download them from your passport. And here we can see the financials app, some utilities, the exceptional exceptions for purchase cards or credit cards, your exceptional exceptions for the general ledger. And if you've imported your general ledger into Working Papers, you can just click that icon and it will then perform tests on the GL that you have already imported. Just remember, for these general ledger tests, it can't perform general ledger test if your client uses batch processing. But let's look as an example for the financials app. If we click on the run audit test, there are some steps that you would follow in terms of the process of getting the data, importing the data into IDEA, mapping it, and then after it is mapped, you can see we have some tests we can run on the general ledger, your accounts receivable, inventory, fixed assets if you have that, accounts payable, human resources, and payroll. After you've defined and you tagged all of these tests, they will have a database linked to them, and we will then export these after the test is run back into your Caseware Working Papers file, and you can then continue to work with those within Working Papers. Okay, so that brings us to the end of all of the IDEA changes. I think we have covered quite a bit of information right now, and I think most of us are ready for a comfort break. So we'll break for about 10 minutes, be back around 25 past. So about 8 minutes, 25 past, we'll be back.
everybody, welcome back. I hope you were able to have a quick break. My other PMs are definitely very passionate about this release, so we're running a bit behind schedule, but we will still make sure that we cover all the things for the financials as well as the Audit International. Right, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Ninka. I'm the product manager for the financial statements, that being IFRS, XBRL and SME. We had a few people in the chat asking, can they go and download? When will the release? It was sent out on the 15th of November, the email with your download link. If you haven't received it, you can just go into the community and log in, and the software is available for download already. The first thing that I'd just like to cover is the update screen. So remember, if you update your financials, if you use that function, you will get the update screen that will show you the two options, the new and replace file, and then also update the financials as the second option. The second option is basically the best option if you have a lot of customization that you want to retain. And then if you did click cancel at any point, you can just check for it again on the check for update screen. In the previous release, you would have seen that we had this button or this information here at the bottom about the document manager that changed for ISA 315. Because of that, the update had to happen concurrently. So you couldn't deselect, you couldn't only update the financials or only update the probe section. What we did in this release is we've decoupled it again, and you can update them independently if you should wish to do so. But please note, if you update an older file before 2022, you will still get this screen to say that you have to update it all together. Do note it is best practice to keep in sync, meaning that if you do use probe and financials, do update them both because of the document manager and the lead sheets that are shared between these two products. Then, as Mo's mentioned, the other element that we've added is the notification manager. So if you go to your document manager, you'll see at the top this notification button. If there's a bell like this, you can click on it and it will give you information on hotfix or a new release or anything like that, communication regarding to the product. There will be no marketing sent on this. It's only for product updates. It's vital for you to be successful. If you click on the do not show again, it will not show again for that PC. Right, with that, let's go into the SME. I'm going to stop my webcam just so that if you have bandwidth problems, that you can actually also see the slides. Right, so for the SME template, we've made the following 5 vital changes. The first is the body corporate one. Then the next is the indirect cash flow, the cash flow worksheet, which is only be for SME English. Then there was some quite a bit of tax changes, and then as well as some general improvements. If we first look at the body corporate changes, so what happened is SACA issued the body corporate illustrators in March 2023, which was previously an ED. Our previous template was based on this ED, so what we've done now is we've updated this template to be the new revised illustrators, and this will be available for all regions that use the body corporate template. We've also made some general improvements. That was feedback from the market, specifically for body corporates, while we had the opportunity now. With that, let me quickly jump into the software, and then I can show you what we've changed on a high level. Right, so as you know, the body corporate template is built on the SME template, so any changes that were made on the SME template will also now reflect on the body corporate as well. But for the body corporate specific changes that we've made is the country of establishment and domicile. That was previously the country of incorporation for companies. And then your nature of, your registered office was updated to be your service address. And then your level of assurance, you'll notice here that we've added here the act at the end to be Act 8 of 2011. And then we've also included this unit section, which is now required. And for all the new documents, you'll see we've added them on the index, the levy schedule, the budget forecast, as well as the insurance schedule. We've also made some changes, the same changes to the Act, like I've mentioned at the top. Then for the trustees' responsibility and approval, there were some changes on specifically these paragraphs for referring to the budget forecast and levy schedule, and we've updated those as well. If I jump to the trustees report, we've included the insurance policy details. You'll see that these three sections, these three tables, are consistent between them. In the illustratives, they don't have all the lines for all the different tables, but for consistency, we have made them the same, that they're all at the same available fields. You'll also note that the same note is available in the note. And then you have your CSRC compliance with the reconciliation here at the bottom. Then if we jump to the accounting policy, we have added the reserves fund as a specific accounting policy, and similar to the revenue, that is only applicable to body corporates. If I then jump to the notes, you'll see that the notes that I've got open here is very specific to the body corporate. They are not new, it's just ones that are different than our normal SME template. In our cash and cash equivalent, you also have your reserve fund bank balances here. And then the new notes that we have is the special levy note, which is here. And then also your, just scroll down a bit, insurance policy, like mentioned, the same that's in the trustees report. We've also amended the revenue note so that it's consistent between the detailed income statement and the revenue note, but they all look the same. Then if I jump to the schedules, which is the biggest changes there are, the first one is the levy schedule. So we have tried to automate these as much as possible. So what happens here is you will complete these rates per square meter for current year and prior year. You will enter the unit number and the square meters, and that will then automatically calculate the next three fields. We have included these tables for the current year and the prior year just for consistency if you should wish to disclose so. Please note on roll forward, the square meters will retain for your current year and your prior year because that shouldn't really change. And your rate per square meter will move to the prior year. So again, calculating these automatically for the prior year table, and then as soon as your current year table is complete, it will calculate again. Then you have your budget forecast. So you can use the budget forecast in two ways. You can use it as input cells, like you can see it's yellow cells that you can input on, or when you import your TB, you can select that as being your budget balance. It is important to remember that if you do a roll forward on this file, to make the right selection that these budget numbers retain if you've used that function. So if we quickly have a look at that. So firstly, if you import your trial balance, and I'll just go next on that to show you the function or the option that you'll select on your table. So what you'll do is on balances, you have here your current year budget, your prior budget, and so forth. So these are the balances that will import to your budget forecast if you want to use them. If you do a year-end close after you've done this file and you have import your budget data and you want it to retain, then make sure that you tick this roll forward budget data option here before you roll forward your file. Then let's jump back into the financials. And then the next schedule that we've included is our insurance schedule. So again, we've tried to calculate this where possible. So your participation quota column will always calculate that it comes to 1. So if you add the unit number and your amount, then you'll see those will automatically be adjusted to always be the 1. So those were the major changes for the body corporate. And how it will affect you is if you do select your body corporate as an entity type when you roll forward, you will automatically see these changes coming through and you can apply them in your file. Right, then the next changes that we've made is to the cash flow statement. So firstly, in the SME template, we've never had the indirect cash flow available. So we've included that as an option. We have made some changes to the cash flow statement after the revised cash flow worksheet, and we've also made some changes to the cash flow statement notes. So let's have a look at those. So I just need to get my right file. Right. So, oh, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Yeah, there we go. The statement of the cash flow. So firstly, the indirect method. If you want to choose that, you can just go to your options and you can go to, oh, sorry, you can just right click and you can go to page settings and format. And then you'll see the indirect option is now available. This is available for SME English and SME Afrikaans and works exactly the same that it does in IFRS. So for SME English, it will still work with your worksheet that we've included. For SME Afrikaans, it will work like it previously did. Then on the cash flow statement itself, we've made a few improvements just with the changes that we've done in the prior year. The first one is that the I'm just waiting for the script to execute, is in your total cash movement at the bottom, your prior number was overridden on a roll forward. So this was corrected on a hotfix that was sent out end of last year, beginning of this year, and this is also now applied to the file. So it was this figure here. As soon as you did a roll forward, then that was overridden. Then if I scroll to the top again, you'll see we've included this undefined difference that is comparing this cash receipts from customers and cash paid to suppliers with the cash generated from operations note to make sure that those all align. And then we've also amended this figure here to pull through from that note to make sure that there's no differences. Please do know that if you want to switch this off, these lines, you can do so by selecting builder mode and right click on off, and then these lines won't print if you don't want to use them. In our last release, we did introduce sheet, and one of the changes that we had to make was for the prior year to be a manual input to make sure that the lines correlate to what was in your financials in the previous year. If you now do a roll forward after your 2022 update, those figures will retain, so you won't need to retype them again. That was a once-off that needed to happen. Then if I go to the tax paid note and the dividend paid note, both of these has got undefined differences to make sure that they tie back as well. So if I then jump back to my slides, then we've made quite a few changes on the cash flow worksheet. I'm not going to go through them all, they're quite detailed, but you're welcome to go through the release notes and read them. I think the most important ones is the rounding one, the first one. So what happened there is if you had rounding in the financials, rounding to thousands or millions, billions, then that wasn't applied in your cash flow worksheet. This was again corrected early in this year with a hotfix, but we have also now applied it to this if you have perhaps had the issue and you didn't get the hotfix. Then you'll see the rest of these is very transaction specific, where we got feedback that there was maybe an input field that was still needed on the cash flow worksheet, or a specific transaction that was not automated as much as it could be. So these have all been amended for that purpose. Then if we look at some other changes to the SME template, we've added a signature area in the PR score, the cash flow worksheet in the tax and the tax comp. This is a request from the market to if you want your partner or your client to sign off so that they're able to sign off. It's a simple signature and it's added in those 3 documents. We've amended some PR score wording. Then there's also rounding on the trade receivables and trade payables. So what happened with the rounding element is because of the optimizer that Mo has explained to us now on how that works, if a note is optimized or not, people would apply the rounding. That's your automatic rounding if you have a few rands or cents out to trade payables or trade receivables, but they won't have that note optimized in. And then the problem is the rounding won't show work correctly in your financials. So what we've done is we've just decided that those 2 notes will always be included in your file, not on, but in your file, to make sure that if you do apply the rounding, that those work correctly. And then we've made some changes to the index, which I'll show you now, as well as the accounting policies for the assets, some wording on the share capital note, the sort on the loans to shareholders, and then the members' remuneration. But let me rather show it to you again in the software. So firstly, if I look at the index, This first line here is your general information line. So this was never included in your index. We have received some feedback from especially the Africa region, not South Africa, but the other regions, that they want that to show in your index as well and be part of the financials. So we've made this fix a while ago, or this request a while ago for IFRS, and for consistency, we just did it on SME as well. And what you could do if you want that to be part of your index, you can just right click and you can on off it in builder mode, like the cash flow worksheet as well. Then if we jump to the accounting policies, for all the asset accounting policies, so that being the PPE, biological assets, and the intangible assets, we've added these tick boxes here, but you can switch the columns on and off if you should wish to do so. So we found, especially if you only have one asset here, then you would rather change the wording there to say the useful life of items of PPE has all been on the straight line method, and you don't necessarily want to show that column. So what we'll do then is we will change that, and then if you tick this box, or any of the others for that matter, then that column will switch off. So that is being done in all the different assets. Then in your share capital note, we have made this change here at the word to update the wording. If your directors have control over the unissued shares, or the shareholders have the control. So if you select the toggle boxes, it will give you the two different options, and we believe this wording is more accurate to what it was before. Then if I go to my loans from shareholders, if you right click here and you sorted this row, sort rows, then what normally happened is your impairment area was part of the section, and then if you sort automatic ascending and descending, it will form part of this section here, and you can't unsort it back with the lines. So we've just excluded that this is always at the bottom, and the structure of your notes stays intact. And then one of the other clients requests that we got is if you select closed corporation, then they still want to disclose this directors and prescribed officers remuneration note. So what we've done is if you select closed corporation, this note will still be on, and it will just be renamed to members remuneration, and you can use it the same as you would normally. Okay, if you then jump back, there was quite a few of other improvements that we've also made. I'm quickly going to talk through them. So in the document structure, if you use that option, some of the documents did not always switch on, even if you do use those tick boxes. So we've corrected that. In the director's report, if you switch on your review section and you wanted to add a page break before that, it didn't honor that page break. So we've also made that fix. One of the other areas that was in the hotfix was the going concern. So if you selected the two radio buttons, doesn't matter which one you selected, it printed everything, although it didn't show to you in your normal mode. So we fixed that it honors the button that you select. Cost of sale is just printing on some lines. Then in the related party note, there's an option there that you can import from Excel file. With the document numbers that changed last year, it was omitted to change the document number that was used and in that related party note with the new document manager note. And therefore we've updated that to work correctly again like it did before. Dividend paid is just a small grammar to have the paid without brackets. The directors and prescribed officer remuneration, there was quite a few scenarios that if you use the different tables that the lines and subtotal lines are different. Or duplicated, so we have amended those so that they were correctly on the various options that you have there. Detailed income statement was just a small change in wording, and then we have the autofill option. So the autofill is what you can run if you have made an exceptional a lot of mapping changes, or you've imported a new TB and you want to refresh it. So what we've done is now, after you've mapped it, this runs automatically. We found it that we had some support calls on this, that we've remapped something and then it doesn't pull through to the financials. To make sure that that then refreshes when you do your mapping, this will automatically happen and is not a manual intervention required from your side. Right, so those are most of the SME changes. The next change is on tax, and it's the same for IFRS and for SME. So I'm going to go through it together, and there's a few changes that we have made there. Okay, so firstly what we've done is the default tax rate. And what I'm going to do is, and maybe while I go rather jump to the, just to save a bit of time, get back into the financials and just show you, oh sorry, show you the changes on screen. So first, if we look at the info store, so the first change that we've made is this 27-28%. So the tax rate changed, and as you amend your year end, this will to after 31st March 2023, this will now change automatically to be 27%. You will also notice that there's 2 decimal places. This was an improvement that's it comes from the African region again, that they wanted to that the tax rate there is sometimes 0.5. So we've made this consistent for everybody to see as well. I also just want to draw your attention to 2 things while I am in the info store. So the one thing is the tax loss brought forward, which is here. So what happened is there was a assessed loss change last year that was indicated that your utilization of the assessed loss for companies that came into effect 31st March, that will mean that your assessed loss is actually limited to be higher of $1 million or 80% of your taxable income. So we didn't make this change in the previous release, as we felt that the clients will just update this figure to be the figure that is going to be allowed to be utilized. But we got a few requests that they would have liked to see how we actually get to that calculation. So now what you will do is you'll still use this tax loss brought forward as you normally would. It's your total figure, and I'll show you now in the tax comp how we then calculated the assessed loss utilized amount that can be used. So just remember the 3 million that comes in here when I jump to that. And then the other thing that I would just like to draw your attention to is the lockdown button. Yeah. So one of the things that we also are looking at is to set a reminder for the scheduled lockdown. So currently it doesn't set automatically, but this is just a reminder that you must do it. As soon as you click on it, it will open your scheduled lockdown, and you can use that accordingly. Right. So then let's have a look at the CTM changes. And it's this one that I've now opened a few times. So there's a few corrections in these, just 2 line items that you can look at. And then we've made also the assessed loss limitation rule changes. So let me just go up to that. So you'll see here that you've got your assessed loss utilized. Currently that is null. If I look at this company, it's already in a loss position, and now we've got this 3 million that comes from the info store that's pulled forward here. If I ever change it, I'm just going to type in a figure here to make it a profit. You'll see that it then does the calculation here at the bottom to say what is the limit, and then it pulls through here at the top. So please have a look at it. I hope this helps and this solves a problem that some of our clients had. You are also welcome to close this if you don't want to use it. And if you had any adjustment that you don't, maybe from a prior year that was carried forward, you can make it in this line accordingly. And then the signature area that I talked about before, you'll see this is here at the bottom. So we call it a simple signature area, meaning it's one director and a date, and you can again print this or switch it off. This is available in your PI score as well as your cash flow worksheet and then your tax comp. If I then go back to the financials, there was just 2 other changes that we've also made for tax. The one was in the deferred tax note, and if you've listened to Mo, you would have heard that he was talking about the section label that was showing. So the area that was changed here was this area here. So if you have a subtotal, then that line and that line will print. If I ever don't have a figure in there and I change that to be now my right, then you'll see that this will still say blue and that this will then print correctly. So this was one of the changes that was requested also from the market. And then last change for tax is our current tax note. So we've included here 2 things. The first thing is the Pillar 2 tax. So the Pillar 2 tax came into effect in May 2023 for immediate adoption in most countries. It's not been legislated in South Africa yet, but it seems like it might be in the next cycle. And for that reason, we have already included the base tax disclosure that you might need for that. If there's maybe an entity that you're doing in a different region that has become effective, then you have the disclosure available already. So there's a mapping number that we've added here for Pillar 2 tax. And then also here at the bottom, you'll see there is some small disclosure available for what the requirements will be. Then also what we've included here is an undefined difference. So also quite a lot of clients ask for that. So this will reconcile your recon here back to the stop number, and we've included that for SME just for amounts, and for IFRS it will be for your percentages as well as your rand values. Right, and then if I just quickly have a look here, the last change that we've made under other was our owners. So on the document managers, there was tax comms for owners that we have in the previous year with the document manager that we changed took out because it wasn't something that we thought the market was using, but it was a request to put that back. So I'll just show you where those are because they're a little bit different place than they normally were. So if I go to the bottom, you'll see under other, there's some tax additional documents, and we've added those 4 documents back here at the bottom as there was before. Right, with that, so that was the IFRS changes that we covered in this release. I will now go into the IFRS templates. So the major changes that we've done here for the cash flow worksheet and the tax is very similar to what we've done in SME, and I will just briefly go over them. But the big change for the IFRS template is the accounting policies because of the IAS1 change, and then as well as some improvements. So the IAS1 change was a change that came through that says amend all accounting policies that is significant. In the past, you showed all accounting policies that were significant, and now you must show the accounting policies that is material. So this is quite a big change, and we have implemented in a way that we believe will be as beneficial for you as possible to give you the flexibility what you need to do on this. So we took quite a bit of guidance out of practice statement 2 as well, that said how you define that is, if it's omitted, then it would really influence the decision. And that was how we based our accounting policies on, which means is we want to give you the options of the accounting policies to say if it really should only be the material ones and not the significant ones. And they said like definition shouldn't really be in there. If that's the normal person should have reasonable knowledge is what the terms that they use, should know what inventory is, for example. But then the challenge came into what reasonable knowledge is and that specific reporting entity, because what is maybe reasonable knowledge for one firm and the users of that entity to another might be significantly different. So because of that, we decided not to take out the previous accounting that was in there to give you the option to still keep them. And I'm going to show you how we did it to ensure that you can really apply them as fit to your entity. And I do think it's important to mention that it really is, if you look at the standard setters, that they do not want the boilerplate accounting policies. They want the story about what is your company about. We put in this template some guidance on how the accounting policy should look, and we've applied it in the same way, but it is really entity specific, especially in regards to big material items. So if I look at the accounting policies, you'll see at the top there's a new button here, and you've got your previous accounting policies that was not updated, and then your revised accounting policies. So the default for any new file will be your revised accounting policies. But if you feel that your entity, maybe your users of your financials need more accounting policies and more detail in accounting policies, descriptive, more definitions, more details that maybe come out of the standards directly, then you can use the previous accounting policies as your base. If you have perhaps already changed your accounting policies in a previous year file, but they are very entity specific, and you've done it in the right way, meaning you've used your super inserted and changed the text like you should, then your previous accounting policy button will still bring those in for you, and you wouldn't want to revise them now already. We also had a few clients that earlier adopted the standard, so I would assume that you also did it in such a way, and then you would be able to still have your old accounting policies in there. If you ever want our newest and greatest accounting policies, the first button is your option, and you can have a look at it. You will see that we did take out, like I mentioned, quite a lot of examples, quite a lot of definitions, and where there was options that should be mutually exclusive, we tried to add the radio buttons to make it easy for you, but you don't have two contradicting statements in your accounting policy. Please do note that this is a one or two option, meaning you either have a complete replace of the first option or complete one of the second one. You can't have a PPE on for the previous accounting policies and then your base of preparation for your revised accounting policies. It just became quite complex to do that, and also from a support perspective became quite a challenge. We don't envision at this point that we will take the old accounting policies out at any stage. It's quite a small, text is quite small in the file, so it's not going to have a significant influence on the size of your file. And for that reason, we'll probably keep it at this point indefinitely. So please have a read through them, familiarize yourself with them, especially if you've got December year ends for IFRS. I think it's quite important to get this narration right, as it normally is quite a bit of a challenge, especially if you also work with clients, to get them to write these stories about how the company works. Then the next change is the new standards. Like we always do, we've included new standards, which will be the top ones here, to make sure that you are from this one actually, to make sure that you have all the new standards that you require for your disclosure. Then, as I mentioned, for the cash flow statement, we've made similar changes that was an SME, so I'm not going to go through them again. The same improvements of the undefined difference on the cash flow statement, and as well as the dividend paid and tax paid note for the cash flow statement notes. For the cash flow worksheet, similar, we've looked at these different areas. The changes might differ a little bit between IFRS or SME just because of the nature of the standard that's different. But the whole description of how that's been changed and how it might influence you is in the release notes. You will notice for share-based payments, we've made a change. There we've actually added some mapping to make sure that there's more automation with the split between equity and share-based payments that was made. Then provisions, non-current assets held for sale, changes in degree of control. Those three areas are specifically in IFRS and the cash flow worksheet that is new, so you can also have a look at those. Then again, the changes, other changes that we've made for the PI score, cash flow worksheet and tax comp, the signature areas included. We've updated the PI score wording, the rounding, the accounting policy and the share capital. It's exactly the same like I've showed you in SME. In deferred income, we've added a table above the summary split to show the government grants, the deferred income 1, deferred income 2, and other deferred income, where in the past we just had the current, non-current split. And then again, all these changes were the same as an SME. For the document structure, the going concern, related party note, dividend paid, directors, subtype directors and prescribed officers remuneration, and then the waterfall. Then these changes were very specific to IFRS. They are mostly cosmetic and small changes, but I'm just going to go through them. So the first one was in your context page where it said pages 10 to 50, didn't always have that 250. So that was a technical label that we had to add at the back to always pull through. So that has now been corrected. In your statement of financial position, the provision row note reference sometimes showed and sometimes not. There was a bit of inconsistency there. Now, if you switch on the note, it will show on your balance sheet. Loans to group companies was some alignment that was corrected. Inventory, it was just some formatting which was changed. In your leases was also just some narration that changed. Your contract liabilities was also just narration. Fair value information was also just some narration. It was not pulling through the name correctly for all the IFRS 9 disclosure for each of the sections. So it's not a big change, it's really just 1 or 2 words that changed, but just the automation of that we corrected. And then other non-operating gains losses, we've updated the lines to print correctly. And then financial instruments and risk management mode is some extra spaces that was between table headers and tables. So as you can see, most of these cosmetic, and feedback that we got mostly from our firm champions as they do their firm templates, what they correct manually, and we hope this will create some efficiencies for you as well going forward. Right, so this is, that was most of the IFRS and SME changes. I will also put in the chat the links to the release notes on the community if you haven't read them yet. And we've also done quite a few videos, one for body corporate, one for the cash flow, to take you through the changes that we've done there. So I'll upload all of them on the chat, and you're welcome to also find it on our community. Then I would like to just give you an update on the IFRS. We've noticed that it's not in this release. So CWWP always release a new taxonomy on that comes into effect 1 October. This year we haven't actually adopted the XBRL because we had a technical difference between the Caseware Working Papers and to implement that, but we are currently looking into. But I did reach out to CWWP and they say that there won't be any deprecations of taxonomy in the next year. So we are very comfortable that your validation process won't change and that your mandatory page and everything will still work as it did before. So there will not be, like I mentioned, a deprecation, and we will definitely implement these changes with next year's changes together. Then IFRS 17 update. I have shared this before as well, but I thought it would be very relevant to just share it again in this forum. So we have not made changes to the IFRS in the standard IFRS template for IFRS 17. And the reason is because this is very industry specific, similar to IFRS 4 was before, and also like IFRS 6 is that we don't include in our normal IFRS template as it's really a limited market that uses it. We did investigate to perhaps have a small scope of IFRS 17 available, like some mapping or some disclosure for the clients that maybe are not insurance companies, but will need to use it. But we got twofold. Firstly, there's not a small scope, it's an all or nothing kind of situation, and secondly, when we reached out to the regulators, they were quite comfortable that they really feel it was only the insurance companies that are going to use this, and most of the non-insurance industry will probably not apply it because of the materiality exemption. So for that reason, we did not include it in the normal IFRS set. But if you have insurance industry, we do have our consulting team that can assist you with an accelerator. It's called the IFRS 17 accelerator. And you can notice there on the right hand side the specific areas that they've included to help you to get closer to the disclosure that you require. It is also very specific, so therefore it also might need some customization. If you do need any information on the IFRS 17, you're welcome to reach out to me, your account manager, or you can put it in the questions and I can send you the information afterwards. Then next, just looking forward, like Christian's mentioned, we've got our Get Ahead new intake training that's starting on 7 February. That will be over a few days, and then we will have sessions for a few weeks every second week, and then after that it will be monthly sessions. So it is really not just a once-off, and if you are interested, I've put in the chat the link. Please show your interest in there that we can make sure that you get the communication as that evolves. Then for March and April, we'll have some corporate virtual meetings, and then as Christian's mentioned, we'll have the July release or we'll have our desktop release in July. So the big drive for that is because of ISA 600, which is group audit. So that doesn't affect the financial statements, but what we would really like to do is have one release a year, but all our users can download when applicable to you. So if you're a corporate and you do not have any need of urgency to do it at that point, you can still do it like you normally did. It is not that the other updates won't be supported anymore. It is just there that you can use it when you need to, and we make sure that the integration works correctly. There is quite a few dependencies, as you can see there, because we will have to do that on the new working papers, the XBRL, and then the compliance changes, as well as CTM changes that comes from SARS. So please watch out for the communication on that release as well. We will have after that a What's New webinar to share these details with you, but if your cadence is more to end of October, November, we will have another What's New webinar then, maybe not in so much detail, but we will have to also communicate the XBRL update, which we'll do in October. That will most likely at this point just be a hotfix or a patch, because the XBRL update runs separately from the financial statements, so we can include it like that. But like I said, please just look out for the communication as we move on this journey for next year. So again, get ahead, please have a look at your mailer box, look at your chat, and you can see what is available. And then also other resources. The recording will be on our YouTube video. We upload all our recordings on YouTube channel, so you're welcome to go and have a look there and to make sure that you stay abreast of everything that's available, as well as our release notes that is available on the community as normal. Right, I am going to look at the chat. I am going to type in, I think just to save some time for Audit International. If there's any questions specifically, I'll reach out to you directly. And with that, thank you very much, and thank you, and have a lovely day.
Thank you, Ninka. So now let's move on to the last piece of the webinar, which is Audit International 25.1. So this now relates to all of you guys using Audit International as your audit and assurance methodology. So similar agenda to this morning. If you were here, we'll look at ISO 220 and ISQM2 and the changes that relates to that. The financial statement areas, which is a huge change for Audit International, and then what's new for all of the different areas. So again, the biggest compliance driver for the assurance side is the ISO 220, which is the engagement partner involvement, and the ISQM2, which is the engagement quality review. I'm not going to go through all the details again, but I've provided with a summary of what is included in those standards and why it is important. But if we look at the financial statement areas, so for those of you who uses the financial statements today, you will know that we have changed all of the lead sheets and groupings in our release last year. What we have done this year as well for Audit International is we have done exactly the same. So we now have one document manager that is the same across all the products when it comes to the working programs, the lead sheet, and the mapping. And that will make it easier for you to work within the product across all of the products. So if you are a financials user, an Audit International user, or you're financials and probe, it just standardizes the document manager for you, as well as the grouping, so that you can understand where different financial statement areas are grouped and how it's grouped across all the products. But that brings us in Audit International an updated FSA, so updated financial statement areas document with all of the new sections, a brand new document manager, the renamed and renumbered sections, and that I've included for you as an annexure in the release notes so that you can see what was the old sections, what is the new sections, as well as how different sections fit into different products. So Audit International works with both IFRS, SME, GRAP, and Ipsos financial statements, and they have different sections that's relevant to them. And we have incorporated all of them in Audit International, but when you then integrate and optimize, we'll delete the ones that's not relevant, and you can see how that then fits in. And then we have new lead sheets for all of those financial statement areas with the graphs now working as expected. So let's look at some of the new features then, as well as fixes, the integration, localization, and content. So some of the new features we've added as the authors. So Audit International has two modes, the author mode and the user mode. And these changes relate to the author mode. So for all of those of you who's firm authors, now's the time to listen. So your financial statement areas document, there were some changes there. In the general options, the AO document, you can now retain completion responses, add additional profiles. We've made some changes to how procedures work when you're changing a procedure. And then when you're working with risks, we've incorporated some changes there. So let me open the template. You can see I'm in author mode because it does show template. If I don't have the template open, it does not show template. So this is my working papers file as an engagement, and this is my actual template file. So when we look at the changes there, the first change within the firm author is you can now add up to 40 different profiles within the profile selector dialog. So previously you could only have 20, you now have up to 40. So that really allows you to tailor the engagements and the profiles based on your firm specific requirements. Then if we look at the work programs and checklist roll forward options, you now have the option to choose whether you want to retain your completion responses as well as explanations, and then also if you want to retain them during the update. So we've added a few options there for work programs and checklists. Then within the risk dialog, we've also added the option for scaling of your risk levels. So previously when you change your own risk levels, we did not allow for, when you're looking at the risk report, the different colors within the dialogues. But now if you go and you say, I want other, and you add your own ones, we will then change the colors there so that we show them in different colors, with the most severe risks displaying in a bright red, second, third levels displaying in scarlet, fourth and fifth displaying in magenta, and then the 6 and 7 levels displaying in violet, and then the last one in gray, which is the less severe one. So you can have up to 8 levels, and we will then scale them for you from a color perspective as well, so that when you're looking at the risk reports, it shows you which ones are higher risks and which ones are lower risks. Then looking at the FSA, some changes here. You can now generate your financial statements area document from custom balances. So previously you could only do your prior year, current year budgets, prior year and current year normal figures, but you can now also add any custom balances. So how do you add custom balances? If you go Tools, Options, there is custom balances there. You can create a new type of balance that you can import into. So if you have interim or you have some other custom balances that you're working with, you can create those and then you can generate and choose your FSA to generate from there. So once you've added those custom balances, they will appear here. And then you can select them to generate from. And then lastly, your common procedures. So when we create procedures within work programs, some of them are normal procedures, some of them are common procedures. And previously we had instances where some of the firm authors go in and they either make a common procedure, a normal procedure without realizing the effect of that. But now what we'll do is we'll give you a warning that if you're changing a common procedure to a normal procedure, it will actually remove it from all of the other work programs where it was also indicated, and it will no longer show them in those work programs. So just be careful with those. If you're making a common procedure and you're adding it to different work programs, if you're then removing that it's not a common procedure like a library type procedure across different work programs, you're making it a normal procedure, it will actually take it away. And you will not be able to see that procedure in the other work programs except the one where you've made it a normal procedure. Okay, so that was the author changes. If we then look at some of the fixes that we've made, the Audit Optimizer Confirmation Report. So that's a document that where you optimize, and then it shows you the documents that were deleted, that were not part of the engagement, and based on the optimizer questions you've answered. But what we found is sometimes when you click to restore the documents back into the file because you changed your questions, it did not bring the documents back in. So we have fixed that, and going forward, it should bring in all of the documents that was deleted, but you've changed your mind and changed the answers, you can now bring them back. Then in the FSA, some columns did not always display correctly and some responses were not always there. We have fixed those. For the optimizer, sometimes the result comment weren't always there automatically and you had to tick it. So we've made sure that when you now sign off, the results column is there and it is then deleted if you remove it from the document. Within procedures, there's quite a few changes and fixes we've made. You can look at the release notes for the details, as well as the same for your risk controls and reportable items dialogues. Okay, then looking at the integration, because we've changed the financial statements and the grouping last year, and we've now updated the document manager for Audit International as well, it is important to note that integration will only be allowed with the new financial statements. So the new financial statements, it is last year's financials or the current year that we have just released. So you can integrate with the current version, one version back, but not before. So if you have a 2018 set of financials or a 2020 set of financials that you want to integrate into, you will first integrate from, you will first have to update that set of financials to the latest version. Once you have updated that and the new document manager is in that set of financials, will you be able to integrate that version into Audit International. Then in terms of localization, so what have we added as part of the Caseware Africa team? First of all, the history documents. So for those of you that were in the Pro pod as well, there's the 6 history documents that we've added. Mo also showed you in the lockdown. So we show you when a file was locked and when it was unlocked. And you can see all of that in the post-lockdown events as well. So previously you had to add this, but this is a very good document to show when you're being reviewed for regulators to show that it actually has not been changed since lockdown. And then there's all the history events, document deletion, document creation, who's accessed the file, and any adjusting journal entries that were added. So that has then been added to the Caseware Africa version of Audit International. It's not in the global one, but we've added those as we got some requests for the histories there. And then because of all the other changes, we've updated the FSA, the simple statements, and document 335 worksheet, the detail of identified misstatements with the new sections. So if I open the FSA, you'll now see that the new sections are included there. It's no longer 20 point whatever it was. It's now FSA 305, 306, 307, which then relates to the document manager based on the selection made within the file, as well as what is in the document manager. So if areas were optimized, they will not show, but there we can see 305 property, plant and equipment, and that is now the new section for property, plant and equipment, no longer 20.10. So that has been updated there, and we have done the same to agree the numbers to your simple statements. You can also see the new numbers, so there's the simple statements, as well as then on the detail of identified misstatements, also bringing in the new sections in the new format, and then making sure that these numbers all agree between the FSA, the simple statements, and the lead sheets, as well as the normal financial statements that you have been integrated with. Then in terms of content that we've added for the year, so 2 brand new documents. The first document is document 302, the engagement quality checklist. And if we go and just have a look at document 302, it is the EQR checklist that they would then complete if an EQR is on the engagement, or they're eligible to be there. Do they have a proper understanding of the ISQM2, any audit planning, materiality, and then responding to the risk significant judgments and the overall evaluation, together with their conclusion that they have performed what they needed to do. So brand new document for the EQRs, and that is then brought in as a checklist. And then we've got document 380, the worksheet for withdrawals. So if for whatever reason you're ever in a situation where you need to withdraw from an audit, then this is a good document to complete, to document the reasons why you had to withdraw. But we are not including this document into every engagement file as a default, because we don't expect you to really withdraw from engagements once you are already in the engagement process, and it will be in rare instances where this actually does happen. So, but it definitely can happen. So we didn't include it in the engagement file. When you're creating a new engagement file and you've run the optimizer, it will actually go and optimize this document out. But you could always bring in the document from the document library. So from the document library, insert it from Audit International and bring it in if for whatever reason you had to withdraw. Then all of the optimizer have some changes in them, and that's for all of the ISA 220 revised questions. So if I open the ISA 220, the optimizer checklist document, just as an example, we do have, do you want to follow the ISA 220 revised and the quality management for ISQM2? If you say yes, then the content for the new standards will be included. If you say no, it will not. So you have an option there, and then some of the other questions will then related optimize in or out based on that question. And then in general, to keep up with the standards, ISQM1, which replaces ISQC1, we have changed the terminology across the product to refer to the engagement quality, from engagement quality control review to engagement quality review. So we've removed the control. And all of the guidance in most of the documents have been updated to reflect the new standard references, both ISQM 1 and 2, as well as ISA 220. So if you've customized any of the guidance, then you can then go and have a look at what has been changed and either action our changes, or you can keep your guidance, but remember to then update accordingly. Then another important update is the one form. So the one form document has been updated and will be replaced in the current template. So if I just open that to give you an idea, one form. So we had to update obviously the one form document, the content in there for the ISA 220 and the ISQM2 content. And in order for us to update the document, we actually have to replace it as part of the update. So that means you will not retain, if you made any customizations to the one form document, you will not retain those customizations. You can get in touch with our consulting team. They can help you to, before you run an update, retain some of those changes. But the reason is we had to bring in all of the new ISA 220 and ISQM references, as you can see there, together with that new document that we have added. Then just looking at the procedures in general, I'm not going to run through all of them. You do have access to the release notes, and we have given you the detailed release notes with all of the changes. There's about 52 major changes within the work programs. And remember, a major change will update automatically. So you don't have to prompt that update to run. We are forcing that update to run automatically. There's some minor updates where we have just updated the guidance of the procedure with the new references. So those you will have a choice whether you want to bring those in or not. Then we've added new procedures, which is 10, and deleted 2, which are no longer relevant. So, but just remember for those major and minor ones, if you want to bring them in to run the update, and then choose those minor changes as well. And then I'm mentioning excluding work programs. For all of the work programs we've added, we've also added the relevant procedures from the work programs and the sections that we have copied them from. Then, as I mentioned this morning, and also as Ninka mentioned, for 2024 and the ISA 600 changes, we are looking at changing the release cycle. So for next year, we will be releasing both Audit International and Probe, which is our two assurance products, in July, together with the financial statements with the details that Ninka mentioned and Caseware Working Papers. So that then comes into July. We'll send out some additional communication later in the year and beginning of next year, so that we can make sure we're all aligned with when the beta dates are, for those of you who's interested in that. And again, this is only for ISO 600. That will be the most important part of the compliance update. So if your firm doesn't do ISO 600 engagements where the group audits are applicable, you could postpone the update to whenever it is most convenient for your firm to then go through that process and also create firm templates. Then just a last mention of our Get Ahead new intake sessions. You will notice from the mail and the link Ninka mentioned, it is not just for Probe and the financial statements, but it's also for Audit International. So we'll have some of those sessions running concurrently. So please make sure if you are an Audit International user and you're interested, especially for new intakes, or if you haven't attended an Audit International training before, that you register for the sessions. It really is open to anyone and everyone. It is not just for new intakes, although we will focus on the work that they will do initially. And the proposed agenda and kind of the sessions is already documented in that email, so you can have a look if one of those prompts your interest. Register for the sessions, and then you can join us for that. Okay, let me see if there's any questions. Okay, so there's a question around the history documents, and is the history documents just more user-friendly than the sync log with some functions removed? Yes, so although we have all history events, it will only indicate what has actually happened on the file. It doesn't have all the details. So it is just a report, but the sync log will actually give you the details. So if I open all history events, you can see when I opened which document, when I integrated, what documents were deleted, but it is just the report of that. It doesn't contain all of the information with the ability to roll back and forward between the sync log. So your sync log will have all of the actual events in there, but the history is just a view. So if I look at, for example, document deleted, there I can see I deleted some of the documents, and that was part of the integration, as well as if I look at the file access, when I actually access the file. So it's also grouped differently to just help with looking at various events. And then I see there's a question around the new updates and the updated template. When is this available? So it's already available on the community. So if you open the Success community and you navigate to your software, so remember you have to be logged in. So once you've logged in, you can go to the My Software page, and from there actually go and access the content that you need to do from the My Software page. So it's already available in My Software. Go and download it, go have a look at the latest content. You can already install it. If you don't have access to the community, please reach out to our support team, and they can then make sure that they provide you with access so that you can log in and see your license information together with your software license that you can then go ahead and download. Questions? Doesn't look like there's any more questions. We are almost right on time. Thank you very much for everyone joining, and we look forward to getting the feedback on how you experience the new release. We are always proud to bring to you any new releases and updating all of the compliance updates. But as always, it's not just the three of us and not just made possible by the three of us. It's you, our clients, who give us the feedback, who participate in the beta sessions, and then as well the broader Caseware team that assists us with all of the development, the quality assurance, and then ultimately the support and sales. So if it doesn't seem like there's more questions, I'll end the webinar, but please feel free to reach out if you are working with the templates and you have any questions. The webinar will be was recorded and will be uploaded next week to our YouTube channel. So if you want to send that on to anyone, you can do that as well. Thanks for attending, and I hope you have a great day further.